So again, the tool that the Reaper has in the original concept of this deity, which is also called Papa Lekba, Candyman, and he have a hook, which is the crook used to harvest the souls, is all the same dude. Papa Lekba, Candyman, Morpheus, Aten or Santa or Satan, the black god that achieved immortality and opened up the pits. Akhenaten, that's Candyman. Candyman because the candy cane is really another play on the crook. And remember what the crook was used for. It's basically used to direct your livestock to the slaughterhouse, to guide their steps. So just like the crook is used to direct the livestock to the slaughterhouse or to lure them, for a predator that's trying to lure a kid, they will use candy, like Candyman. So that's why it's called Candyman, and the candy cane is symbolic of the crook, because they both are tools that the predator is using to direct the prey, to guide them, to bait them and lure them in a certain direction. In the bottom right corner of this collage, that's the god Quetzalcoatl carrying that hook, again symbolizing immortality and all of that stuff. That cane is the key, the Jesus key, that opens up the gates to immortality. And another form of this is the Nehushtan, the brass serpent carried by Moses. That's what allowed Moses to open up the water and part the sea, open up the pits or access the opening into the primordial waters. So another form of Neuralink is this bulky white little helmet. The pharaoh in ancient Egypt, he would have sat on a throne and he would have been hooked up to Neuralink for most of the day. And he would have sat in that throne and ruled his entire kingdom using technology. And it was nothing he wouldn't know based on Neuralink technology. Akhenaten had a very technological kingdom in Egypt that still get a lot of scrutiny to this day. People think he was an alien god, it was a zombie apocalypse, all kind of weird stuff. But really, it's exactly what we saw in the movie Salem's Lot, but instead of a Dracula and biting necks, think Neuralink prongs and transhumanism instead of vampires. The pharaoh would have been like the God in heaven that you read about in the Bible. The God in heaven don't leave his throne. He sit in that throne all day for eternity. And for eternity, as God sits in that throne, God rules the entire universe because God knows everything and God can be anywhere without leaving that throne. God is sitting in that throne in heaven with his eyes closed. And if God want to be in South Africa, God can just go inside of a human body, an empty vessel, and be in Africa. And if God want to be in California, God can project its consciousness into an empty body that's in California. The earth is halfway populated with real players, and the other half of the people on the earth are just simulated empty vessels, or what's called NPCs, non-player characters. And maybe I'm going too far to say half, but these are families that descended from the dynasties in Egypt. So God can be anywhere at any time because God is a spirit that is either under the earth or on some sort of uncharted island. It's an ancient spirit that's been on this earth for thousands of years, hooked up to Neuralink and living out its life by projecting its consciousness into drone bodies. That's the hive mind. The leader of this hive mind appears to its followers like a human, but the soul inside of that human body, the consciousness in that body, is projecting itself into that vessel from another location. That's the technology that they achieved in Egypt. They had technology where if you put this headdress on, they was able to recreate the human body into a drone, like how they growing organs and stuff and all that. They was literally able to refashion the human body. But the only thing they can't make is a soul. So you got these empty vessels that can be made, and a soul can literally inhabit that vessel if it want to. So think of a robot that you can upload into. If we can use brain-computer interfaces to upload consciousness and extract it out of the body, what's the possibilities of that? I can make robot bodies and I can have a human upload their consciousness into the robot body and bring life to this robot. It's no longer your typical robot. It's literally got a living soul in a machine. And this is what happened in the ancient world. Humans became so technological, we blurred the lines on what was human and what was machine. And so this technology opened up a portal that blurred the lines in between the living and the dead, which is why when it resurfaces onto the earth, it say the dead will be risen up. This is the Antichrist technology that allows the dead to be lifted up. Why? Because in the near future, when a person is on a deathbed, the hospital gonna say, would you like the option to be saved? That's why the symbol of the hospital is the cross of Jesus. In the ancient world, we had the ability to cheat death. This is your concept of mummies and zombies and all that. Jesus getting up out the grave, that was achieved with the same technology we are about to bring back today. Morpheus is another representation of this deity that unlocks the gateways, that brings this technology to humans that allow us to cheat death with technology. There are penalties to pay when you cheat in anything. When in any form of cheating, there's penalties to pay. So when man cheated death, the penalty, the universal laws, the penalty that these people paid in Babylon and Egypt for cheating was condemnation. They stuck now. They can never leave the earth and ascend to higher realms. And they don't want you to ascend because they can't. Remember that Neo awoke from the matrix. He bust out of a pod. The pod is the pit, or what they call in the bottomless pit, hell. That was Neo's pod, or his pad. Even if you put the U, you get pud, which is the root word of puddle. And Neo's pod was full of water. The earth realm is literally a puddle of life. It's like a pond. What's the root word of ponder, which is to think, ponder, the wandering mind. That's why they said life is but a dream, the dream of the wandering mind, the one pondering this thing in a pond. So with everything I've said so far, I want to summarize with this point here. The same reason Akhenaten was demonized in Egypt was the same reason Moses had to flee Egypt, because the new church papacy was setting up shop and crusading the world, and they was getting rid of all this knowledge, all this technology. They wanted to be controlled by only a few people. You had a situation on earth where a few men already had started establishing themselves as power sources using this technology. That's what I keep telling you with Akhenaten. That's why he was hated in the dynasties. If all of the dynasties in Egypt were royal organic bloodlines, which I doubt it, all of these bloodlines in the dynastic age that established these dynasties, they were hybrids. They weren't humans. This whole system of government come from these people, and it's a non-human system, which is why I know that the earth was very different before this system of government that they are perpetuating. The idea that these original dynasties were humanoids, if you think about what the Egyptians was into, is very likely. This pharaoh that we call Akhenaten, I have several theories about him, because it got to be a reason why the other dynasties disliked him. And the reasons I can come up with is either these original dynasties were real humans and he was the pharaoh that brought in transhumanism and sold them out with the machines, and that everybody hated him for the same reason we hate sellouts for selling us out. That's number one. Number two, these dynasties were already humanoids, and Akhenaten came along and trying to teach the knowledge of the humanoids to everybody. And that's why he's hated. Because when you think about what Atenism is, Atenism could be Pharaoh Aten's attempt to teach the whole world the secrets that I'm teaching them. Or it can be his own cult and his religion to make himself God and to hide this technology behind it's magical and I got powers you don't got, therefore worship me and I can give you these powers too. Because that was the trick of these gods. That's what Jesus said. That's what all of these deities said. The witch say the same thing. The witch would tell the people, I can make you beautiful forever. I can make you powerful. I can make you live forever. The witch will promise you everything Jesus promised you in exchange for your soul forever. And that's what world religion is doing. They were promising you immortality, all of this stuff, in replace of you serving this thing forever. So they hated him for one of those reasons, if not another one that I haven't thought of yet. But what this pharaoh represent in Egypt is a changing the way that everything was going as far as the spiritual system. And the symbol that he was putting out there, it would have been a symbol that if they didn't want regular people to know the truth, he wouldn't have chose that as his symbol, because his whole system was literally exposing everything I'm telling you now. And the only reason you would teach people the capabilities of this technology, number one, is if you really wanted to even the playing fields. Number two, if you wanted to introduce them to it so you can harvest their souls. They're teaching us the same thing today about this technology. And I know it's not to really help us. I know it's to harvest our souls. And in my opinion, this could be what Akhenaten was up to. All we know is that what he represents is the return of this technology in his time, and that it was met with resistance, just like we're doing Elon Musk today. So when you look at how they demonize Akhenaten and his teachings and turned it into Satanism and witchcraft and all of that, if you think about it, they did the exact same thing to Jesus Christ. He came telling men that you are gods, the kingdom of heaven is within, and they killed him for that. Whatever Moses learned from the Egyptians, Moses had to flee Egypt. And my theory is that Moses, what he learned from Egypt was Occultism. I believe Moses learned Occultism from Egypt. And Occultism is this technology of immortality, brain-computer interfacing technology, consciousness uploading and transporting and all of that. The practice of this was Occultism or Satanism or witchcraft. And I think this is what Moses learned from Egypt. And when Moses learned this from Egypt, there was eventually a time in Egypt where they started to go on witch hunts and delete this information from society, which would have led to Akhenaten being demonized, and it would have led to Moses having to flee Egypt during a witch hunt and during the transitioning of us going from the old laws of being good and righteousness to ascend and achieve the gifts of the God. See, Moses represent the doing away with the law. And what allowed us to do away with the original law was technology. The old law was that in order for you to achieve immortality and escape the cycles of life and death, you literally gotta master yourself and become a good person. How evil came onto the earth is because we did away with the law. We created a new system where you can achieve immortality and all of the gifts of the gods without being good. And that's what Moses represents, a new system where with technology, the promise was the possibilities are endless with technology, and that we no longer gotta be bound to the old law. So Moses represents the doing away with the law, and Christ does. And the Nehushtan is the first form of Christ, or the symbol that allowed the ancient people to do away with the law. And that symbol later mutated and transformed into the brazen bull or the golden calf. We'll talk about that briefly later. Now, the symbol that did away with the law was the cross. And this cross, this Nehushtan, this symbol of Moses, this symbol of the early form of Christ, it is symbolizing this technology. So all of these symbols of immortality represent man-made technology that allowed humans to cheat death. And the moment we was able to cheat death, that is what the Bible means by doing away with the law. Because this technology now allow people to achieve immortality on the earth, which was something you could only achieve by ascending up to heaven through mortal incarnations. The earth realm is the realm of mortals. Once we have immortals dwelling on the earth, it's because of the use of technology. The concept of being mortal means that a soul inside of a body will live in that body in this earth, and when it part ways with that body in this earth, it'll go to a higher realm, and that the soul will pass on from this body into a higher reality in the next body. That was what passing on meant, or to die, to pass on. But to cheat death, it means to pass around and around and around in the earth realm. Souls are not passing on. They're in a perpetual circle loop cycle of Saturn, which is Satan, the god of repetition. This is the god that creates cycles of time, chronos. Your ascension up the stairway to heaven is your exit from time. And when you get to the top, you now are outside of time in the base reality, in the infinite realm, where you now risen above death. And now you in this higher realm with the gods in our ancestral realm, where you can't die no more, but you did it the right way. According to the Hindu, the right way to do this is with self-mastery, and it's gonna take 7 incarnations up the stairway to heaven. Some people don't want to master themselves. They rather master technological mechanisms. And when we do that, then the technology will be better than the people. And if you look at this world, the amount of energy we spend making sure that technology function great, if we spend that money to make sure humans function great, we wouldn't even need hospitals. Our machines are better than our people. Our machines are smarter than our people. And that's because we live in a technocracy where machines rule it. You're literally in the matrix. There's an inhumane agenda on this earth that's catering toward technology, transhumanism, and machines. So the ancient people stopped mastering humans and they started mastering technology. And when they did that, humans could no longer govern themselves. And humans now are being governed over by the same technology we created. It's policing us. So Moses and Akhenaten represent a changing of the law, or a changing of the order of the spiritual system at a certain point. Because there are parallels between Moses and Akhenaten. When you look at the modern canon in world religion of the books that exist in all of these world religions, it's more books that's been removed than the books that we got, that they got us reading just in modern canon. And a lot of these removed books, it go deeper in detail of the technology that's being used. And you won't think that it's miracle stuff. They removed a lot of this stuff because it shed light on what I'm saying, that the people were very advanced back then. Now, those are the books that they're using to make all of this technology. And they using the glyphs and the scripts while they got us looking into the KJV, interpreting it through the lenses of Pastor Porkchop, basically. But the thing about Moses and Akhenaten is that they both represent a change of the spiritual law. And you know, people will argue whether it was for good or whether it was for bad. But what we do know is the technology that come from Moses, Akhenaten, and all of these people I'm talking about, the people who using it today, they're using it for bad. That's something we do know. And another thing we do know is that when this technology was introduced, it did away with the law, because people were saying, we no longer got to be good no more to receive eternal life. We can just follow Jesus. And what that means is like believing in Jesus, and Zionism is believing in scientism, believing in tech gurus and men who are the quote unquote experts of the world. We did that before. That created a technocracy, and that's what world religion is. It's an ancient technocracy disguising itself through miracle workers and supernatural concepts. Before this technology, the only way you can achieve all of these gifts of immortality and etc., I can't stress it enough, was to simply master yourself and be a good person. When people found out you can achieve immortality and all these gifts without mastering yourself, the world became a bad place. If people find out you can achieve all of these gifts and perks without being a good person, the world will become evil. And that's what happened with the belief in Christ and world religion and the new system that did away with the law. And that system was based upon you can still go to heaven without being good. Now think about what's gonna happen in the year 2050 when they make death an option and humans actually cheat death. You know what's gonna happen? People gonna leave the church. The only reason people go to church every day is because they want eternal life. That's the only reason they be good. And they'll tell you, they'll say, boy, if it wasn't for God, I mess you up. But I want to go to heaven. I want eternal life. If it wasn't for that, boy, I would have fucked you up, right? They'll tell you that, right? Now, what if they are able to give humans immortality? If people knew that they could achieve eternal life without being good people, the world would be very, very wicked. Because you got to think about it. Most of the world are convinced right now that if they don't be good, they can't go to heaven. But guess what? They still wicked. Even though they know they can burn in hell for being bad, the world is still evil. Because people is saying, long as I ask for forgiveness before I die, I can go to heaven. Now, what if someone come along and say, you don't even gotta be good no more, and you ain't gotta be begging for no forgiveness. Here go your eternal life right here. You don't gotta die if you don't wanna die. Death is an option. Most other people in the church will leave the church. Cause think about it, most other people in the church are saying, if it weren't for eternal life, I would do this or I would do that. And that's why the book of Revelation say, when this technology come back to the earth, that most of the church gonna go astray. They ain't really serving a God because they wanna do the right thing. They serving a God because they God fearing and they want eternal life. They don't want eternal damnation in hell. If someone can free them from that whole situation, they would gladly do it. And the Bible even know that, which is why it says that in the book of Revelation. And that's the flaw of ruling through fear, that people don't genuinely do the right thing because they're scared something gonna happen to them. If I'm not stealing out the store because I think I'm gonna get a whipping, then that means I'm a bad person. You shouldn't steal out the store because it's wrong and because you taking something from somebody else. But if you not stealing out the store because you worrying about what's gonna happen to you, that's even more evil and selfish. So that's what I'm saying about most people today. That's what world religion has done to the world. They not doing wrong because they don't want to burn in hell. But most of them would do wrong if you told them you can escape hell some kind of way. And that was the promise that Christ brought. And that's what did away with the law, that you can escape hell simply by following me, and you don't got to follow the law, which is don't kill, don't steal. That's like somebody saying, look, you can go steal out that store and you ain't gonna get punished, right? Ain't no implications because I got your back. I paid the price for you. The wages of sin is death. And that's the law of the ancestors. The Hindu taught that death is basically you dimming your light with negative energy. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Death to the Hindu was perpetual reincarnation in an ignorant state of mind as an evil, selfish person, basically. It taught that you can never escape the earth realm in that kind of mind state. You're basically a dim soul in the realm of darkness. The whole world is being taught you can be as gangster as you want, as capitalistic as you want, and long as you believe in Christ, you can be forgiven and go to heaven no matter how bad you are. But the old law was that the wages of sin is death. The reason Christ said, I paid the cost for you, is because of technology. They cheated death. Christ represents the technology that allowed man to cheat death and therefore do away with the law. Because if breaking the law is death, the punishment is death, and we got the technology to cheat death, then guess what they're saying? You can break the law all you want, and you ain't got to worry about not going to heaven no more. That's what Moses represent when he break the 10 commandments. When he break those 10 commandments, and now this new God that they following is Jesus Christ. Jesus is the serpent. Jesus is really personifying Neuralink technology. And Moses is basically telling his group of priests and his fellow Masons, I got the technology to split the waters, to open up a portal into the ethereal realms, to go into the dream realms, the astral realms. I got the technology, just like Enoch, Ezekiel, all them left the earth, not on a spaceship with an out-of-body experience. Uploading consciousness was a thing in the past. So Moses was able to tell other men, I can take you to the other side. If you don't believe me, here, hook your head up to this, put this on. Put this helmet on, the wing helmet of Mercury, and I'm gonna show you the other side. And he would bring them back, and they would be believers of the kingdom because they've seen it with their own eyes. Enoch and the rest of them. That's still going on today. People cheated death in the ancient world, and they were able to live in this astral plane indefinitely. Think about what death is. Death is your soul leaving this body and passing on to another world, passing on. But if your soul leave this body and stay here and play around, you like a poltergeist. You like a magician or witch. The technology that allow these people to straddle the fence, play around the astral plane is Neuralink technology. It's old ancient technology that's coming back to the earth. And it bears the same symbol of the serpent of antiquity during Moses' time. Moses had the technology to let the people see the promised land. And that's the land that's promised to come when we all die. So the technology that Moses had was the technology to connect the dead with the living. Moses and Christ is the same person, personifying the same thing at different times. That's why if you take the M off of Moses and the J off of Jesus, you get Isis, Osis, this same Isis, which is a goddess in Egypt, which we're going to talk about her later, which represent the same concept. So basically, if you don't remember your mistakes, you can never correct them. And that's what Jesus promised in his followers when he say that I can raise you back up again from the dead, and with the power of forgiveness, I can delete your sins away from you. And this new system on earth is a system that's against what the Hindu was saying. This system is saying that a soul can just keep coming back to the earth over and over again, and it's gonna repeat the same mistakes that is made, a perpetual cycle of ignorance, never learning. Whereas the Hindu said, when we make mistakes and do wrong, we remember these forever, and we'll always use them for life lessons, even in our next incarnations. That our wrongdoings would hunt us and make us guilty for the sake of making us correcting them and being a better person. If you able to murder somebody and just forget that you murdered them tomorrow, you gonna keep murdering. But if you can't sleep at night because you keep remembering what you did and it's hunting you, you're gonna not murder again. You're gonna regret that. And that system is what was done away with the concept of forgiveness. Because when they teach that, hey man, God forgave you and forgot about it, so forgive yourself, and you forget about it because you no longer gonna be held accountable for that, that's wrong. The old law was what goes around comes around, and what you did gonna come back to you. You can't cry your way out of that. And ain't no way out of your whoopings. Ain't no way somebody can take the whooping for you. I paid the price for your sins. That's a lie that they telling us that's making us build up karma to keep us stuck here. Everybody got to pay for their own wrong. But if somebody wanted you to be trapped here like them because they the devil, they'll tell you, don't worry about what you did wrong. It can be forgiven, man. Don't worry that you raped that little child, that you dropped a bomb on 10,000 people and blew them up. It's okay. You can sing gospel songs in streets of gold. That's an evil religious system. And that's why the world's so messed up. Under the old law, the world was literally a utopia. People treated each other better when we was taught that what you did, you gotta pay for it. Do unto others like you want them done to you, because it's gonna come back to you. That created a different world. That was the old law that Jesus did away with. And the original form of Jesus was the Nehushtan, or the serpent cross. You gotta think, man, this religion that you call Christianity, it existed before Christ. So what did the deity look like before Christ? It was a snake on a tree, what Adam and Eve was talking to. That's what Moses' religion was. That come from Egypt. So the snake on the tree became Jesus on the cross. And Jesus is considered a seraphim in religious theology. And he was casted down like Satan. The word seraphim is a play on the word serpent, which is serpent. The modern word for snake, serpent, come from the word seraphim, serpent. So if you think of the word serpent, take the ser off, and guess what you get? Repent. Repentance is the teaching of the serpent, which is a false teaching. It's gonna lead you to hell. Ain't no repentance. Ain't nobody else can die for your sins. Whatever you done wrong, you gotta pay for. That is the false teaching of this false demigod that everyone worshiping under these religions. Repentance, forgiveness. So when we talk about the Nehushtan, we already know that the Nehushtan that was carried by Moses is also an equivalent of the flail. And the flail is the devil's trident. And the Nehushtan is, well, it's just the devil himself, the serpent right there. All of this is Satanism. And that's why I'm giving you all of this. This is an extension of part one, where we went over with Occultism. Because Satanism is literally the religion of Moses. Moses received his power from the serpent. And Moses would have been considered a wise man. The term for that was Magi, which is the root word of magician. Back in the day, people thought tech gurus were magicians because people were so dumbed down. They didn't understand this technology. After this stuff went occult and they went on witch hunts, they was killing people who understood electricity and magnetism. And the world had got so dumbed down under the new church and the Crusades, Constantine and all of these new rulers that was trying to hide this knowledge, that the average mob would crucify you if they found out you was practicing with electricity or something. They had the people so dumbed down that if you would have came to these people and was like, listen, I want to show y'all something. This is called electricity. This can help us out right here. The moment you showed them a lightning bolt in your hand or a spark, they would have stoned you to death. Magic, witchcraft, sorcery. But this was once common knowledge. Don't you know that the three-pronged devil trident is just an electrical outlet? The negative, the positive, and the grounding port. But when it became demonized, they turned this knowledge of electricity. This became the devil trident. When you plug in some in the wall, you see this same trident on your wall outlet. So this knowledge of pulling energy from the North Pole, Santa or Satan, it became demonized so that only a few people can be literally in power. So this staff that Moses had in his hand, the name for it is an electric oscillator. That's the Egyptian Ankh, And that is the same technology that Nikola Tesla introduced that made us go to World War II. You know, Nikola Tesla was trying to introduce free energy and electricity. It's crazy that we call him Nicholas because Santa Claus is Saint Nicholas. And if you look at the Tesla Tower, it's a big Santa Claus hat. And what Santa represents is the knowledge of electricity that was demonized. The people that was bringing electricity to the earth, they was called sorcerers, witches, devils. And the pitchfork of Satan was just an electrical outlet port that they was trying to teach about. That'll get you killed. Now, people don't want to believe that the ancient people had electricity, tech people of their time. It just wasn't popular at a certain point. It went into hiding and people was being hunted for it, hunted down. This was what the original witch hunts was all about. So just to show people that Moses was worshiping Satan, the name of the serpent staff that he carried with him was called the Nehushtan. And if you take the Nehu off of it, you're left with Shatan, S-H-T-A-N. That is the way you spell Satan in a lot of cultures, Shatan. So when you say Nehushtan, Moses was worshiping Shatan or Satan, the serpent staff. He was getting his power from the serpent. Now, the Nehu part is a deity that we call in Hollywood Nehushtan, the Neo staff. Neo had a blade, a sword. That's what the Pharaoh got. The Lion of Judah carrying the scepter. Moses with the scepter. The one, Neo, Nehu, Shatan, Nehushtan. So the first part is literally dealing with Neo, the one. The word Neo is one. It's a play on the word one with Neo. What Neo represent in the Matrix is what Jesus represented on Calvary, leaving the earth realm out of the simulation. And when you see Jesus in a lot of this artwork holding up the keys of life and death, that ain't nothing but the Neuralink. The word Neura is a play on the word Neo, Neuralink, Neo, the one. That's the singularity, or the ball that you see at the top of this Aten symbol, the one. So if you look at this flail, what connects all of the prongs is the one little rod that he holding in his hand. That's the one. This one higher self connects all of the lower selves, just like in the movie Jet Li, the one, Neo, the one. So the one is the spinal cord, or the middle rod in the trident or the Jewish menorah. The middle pole that's in the middle of the Jewish menorah or in the middle of the trident, that's the one. From that one comes the many, and that one is at the center, splitting it evenly like Ma'at. So just like with the devil's trident, every spike you see are connected to the center spike, the center point, just like with the Jewish menorah. That's like the main trunk of the tree, and every other spike is like a branch coming out from that one. And that comes from Atenism. The ball in Atenism represent the center point or the trunk of the tree. And from that one, it connects the many rays of light coming from it. It's the same concept, just like with the flail. You got all of these little prongs coming from one center pole that you hold in your hand to control the other one. And whatever that one do, the other ones do. This is based upon like the avatars of Vishnu and all of that. Even the concept that Plato had is in direct relation to Atenism, and even the keys of Janus, like we said, Freddy Krueger. Before Christians worship Christ, they worship the devil, and they both sat at the right hand of God and was casted down by God, Christ and Satan. They're basically one and the same. Christ came to the earth many times, and his first presence in the earth realm was he appeared as Satan. The first manifestation on earth of this deity that we call Christ was a serpent deity wrapped around a pole. And we still see that in Buddhism and the barber pole and many other cultures today. But that was the original form of Christ. And basically Christians today who don't know that, who think that I'm wrong, them the Johnny come lately people with the new form of Christ that Constantine brought. This new form of Christ that y'all got is the European whitewash version. The original Christ wasn't any race. It was a serpent, a snake that every race used to personify the Kundalini, because your soul don't belong to a nationality or a race. So no matter what color a person's skin was, we taught them that your Kundalini was green, and that no matter what color you are, when you leave this earth, you leaving as a streak of green light in a aurora borealis. And this was the spiritual system of ancient Gnostics, the early church as I call it. Before there was a such thing as God and the devil, there was a such thing as God and goddess, yin and yang. And understanding the balance of these polarities is the key to harnessing energy, which is based upon negative and positive. That's how you make a battery. The Holy Trinity is negative, positive, and grounding point. Before it became Father, Son, Holy Ghost, it was yin, yang, and serpent in the middle, which is the grounding point that connect the two. So when we talk about the Nehushtan, or what some refer to as the Moses serpent staff, this was literally the symbol that represented the spiritual system that Moses and his cult practiced during that time. This was what early Christians practiced before Christ, before it became the new Christianity that we see today. The early Christians before Christ, such as Moses, the symbol of their faith and the symbol by which they received their power from was the Nehushtan. And one thing that I want to point out about the Nehushtan is that, again, it is equivalent to the magician's wand. And another thing I want to sink it to that's going to blow you away is the Kabbalah tree of life. So if you look at this Kabbalah tree of life, you can see you have this tree or this staff with the serpent wrapped around it. And this was the spiritual system of Moses, Kabbalism. And what do we say about people who practice the Kabbalah? We say that they are witches, they are sorcerers, they are magicians. And today I'm taking away all the spookism. Again, Kabbalah is just another way and another practice of releasing the Kundalini. So the serpent wrapped around a tree, we must always remember that the original knowledge behind this symbol is dealing with the Kundalini, the knowledge of consciousness and the soul's ascension, the knowledge of the central nervous system. What we call serpent wisdom, an equivalency of this quote-unquote serpent wisdom would be Kabbalah, just showing you guys that before world religion as we know it today, this is the spiritual system that was once prevalent in the world, but I'm also showing you how and why it went into secrecy, into occultism, to where it had to be hidden because of witch hunts. So our central nervous system is the earth. It's like a super quantum computer that's allowing every single being with a soul to project themselves into manifestation and out. And here is the Yggdrasil concept of the universe, so that you can compare this to the central nervous system and the Kabbalah tree. As within, so without, as above, so below. Our spinal cord and our aura is basically the North Pole with the planets orbiting around it. Something else I wanted to point out, the god Zeus carrying the lightning bolt. The lightning bolt is just another way to symbolize the serpent. So you will see a lot of men wrestling the serpent or holding up the serpent, or either the serpent staff like Moses. But the lightning bolt is the same concept. It's another way of showing the serpent knowledge or the sine wave energy, Kundalini. And so that lightning bolt is an equivalent of the lightsaber and the Jedi pillar. I'm going to sync all of this stuff together in this presentation. So this Kabbalah tree of life, you can look at it like a scepter, a magician's wand with the scepter on top. But that's what the earth is. This is what the central nervous system is. And of course, when we go into the Kemetic tree of life, you can see that it is the same as the Kabbalah tree of life and the Yggdrasil concept of our universe. So we're syncing this one to the collection as well, people. The Quran calls this staff simply a walking stick. But the thing about the title of a walking stick, even a walking stick was a stick that symbolized a person of high importance, of high status. And with that said, we're going to now segue into how this also can be synced to the pimp's cane and the herald's staff. So walking sticks were a symbol of status in early America. Barons and men of high status didn't leave the house without their walking stick. You notice that the Monopoly man has a walking stick. And this is the scepter of the people that bankrupted the world. There are a group of people that hoarded all of the ancient knowledge that I'm sharing with y'all, and they dumbed the rest of the world down. And it was them who popularized the herald staff. A lot of the barons and bankers, and like I said, men of high corporate status. In early Wall Street days, it was common to see several walking sticks. And the men that you saw carrying walking sticks, they were somebody in society. And that was just a known rule. You didn't see like poor guys with a walking stick. Later on in America, everybody started having walking sticks. Again, even the pimps. But the pimp's cane is used the same way to show status. There's a history of the cane being used as a threshing tool. Like I was saying earlier, in early America, men of high status would beat men of low status with their canes. And to beat these men with your cane in the street was also like the ultimate form of embarrassment in society, to belittle someone at one point in early America. In the old days, the Magi, the magicians, the so-called witches, the wise men, the pharaohs, everywhere they went, they carried a walking stick or a scepter. And in my theory, I believe this thing would have had the ability to strike a person dead like lightning, which is why we see Zeus holding a lightning bolt. Now think of this like a taser. Think of it like a modern police asp. You know, the little stick that they whip out, and if they touch you with it, you get struck. You go to shaking and foaming like you got the Holy Ghost. I believe in the old days, there were a few men walking around the earth with these sort of electric sticks that they can kill you with this thing. And they probably had a certain level they can adjust the intensity of it to whether they want it lethal or non-lethal. But the few men that walked around with these things, they would have been feared. No one would have wanted to get near them. You would have been treated like a god, in my opinion. What's the number one thing that people say about God? They say God will strike you dead. That's a number one saying that I used to hear in the South, that God will strike you dead. Now, the Pharaoh was called God in his day. All pharaohs were called gods by the people at the time, and they carried a scepter, and I do believe that they had the ability to strike a person dead. And so the idea of men of high status walking around with a cane and using it as a disciplinary tool on the quote-unquote peasants of the society, it's something that can possibly go all the way back to ancient Egypt. And again, we do see this in early America with the barons and the men of high status using the cane as a disciplinary tool and even as a lynching tool. And the people of this land, they are the descendants of Moses. And Moses learned from the Egyptians. And this is why they have the Egyptian pyramid on their money. Their entire fiat system comes straight from the pits of Babylon and Egypt. And everything that we're doing in our society today is just a repeat of what the Babylonians and Egyptians did, which is why I'm trying to show you that with the technology and to sync this stuff together so we can see beyond the spookism at the technological devices of the enemy. When we see the golden calf or the golden bull, the brazen bull on Wall Street. This is a modern symbol of the god Moloch and the god of Moses, the golden calf that Moses worshiped. In Egypt, this golden calf was called Hathor. Remember, Moses learned from the Egyptians, which is where he learned the whole system of capitalism, fiat government, fiat currency, where he learned the pyramid scheme that we call government. The real truth about the pyramid is that it represents the government structure of ancient Egypt, with the debt slaves at the bottom and the rich and wealthy at the top. And the people at the bottom, they pay the most taxes. The people at the top don't pay no taxes. We got that same system in America today. That same bull market, that same rich get richer, poor get poorer system that they started in Babylon and Egypt to bankrupt the world. This is what the dynastic age was all about, the building of a private empire, a group of private families or quote unquote dynasties, establishing an order on earth over the masses. So that's the significance of the pyramid. It represents the fiat system of government and a scam that is being ran against humanity. The pyramid in Egypt is important because it symbolizes the pyramid scheme that was ran on the masses of ancient Egypt and on the people in today's world as well. So before there was a golden calf, there was a golden serpent, and that golden serpent had wings. It was a winged serpent, and it was brazen or bronze. And later they transformed it into a cow or calf. And when I say they, I'm talking about Moses's cult, because in Egypt, they always had the serpent and the calf. They had Hathor and they had Knuphis and other forms of the serpent deity together. But what was going on in Moses's cult is that they went from the Nehushtan to the golden calf, and eventually the golden calf and the Nehushtan became Jesus Christ today. Now there's a weird deity that's called Ophiotaurus, which is a cow mixed with a serpent, as you can see here. So this cow that's half cow, half serpent is a result of, in my theory, the mediary period by which some cultures were transitioning from the Nehushtan to the golden calf. So in my theory, I'm saying that these certain cultures didn't go from the worship of the serpent deity to the worship of the cow god Moloch. They went from the worship of the serpent deity to the worship of Ophiotaurus, which was the blending of the serpent deity with the cow. And then eventually the cow concept became more popular and they just abandoned the serpent altogether. So when you go to America today, we only see the golden calf on Wall Street, and that was the last deity known to be worshipped by Moses before it fully transitioned into modern day Christianity. Another thing I wanted to point out about this winged cow, this golden cow with wings, is that, well, of course, it is another form of Moloch. Remember that the cow god Moloch has wings as well, and the cow god Moloch is just another form of Jesus Christ, as you can see with the piercings on the hands right here. And we can also sync these two deities with Morpheus in the movie The Matrix. And his job is to get you to ultimately choose and decide what and who you want to be, whether it's good or bad. And that's why you see Morpheus with the red and the blue pill. Whether you want to be your woke version or your sleep version, this guy just giving you the choice. That's what this guy is. He's a demigod that's just creating duality, which is a fork in the road that's giving you the option or the choice. And you gotta pick one. It's like the more crack you smoke, the harder it is to get off of it. And the thing about evil, according to a lot of the ancients, is that it is like a bottomless pit. Once one immersed themselves in wrath, evil, pride, anger, all of these things, lust, it literally starts to deteriorate them and mutate them. One thing about our body, our mind programs our body. And the reason the universe made it that way is so as a man thinketh, so is he. So because whatever in your mind and heart, that's really the fantasies and desires that you want to manifest. So if that's in your mind and heart, your biology, your body chemistry will start to transform for you to be better suitable to manifest that thing in your mind and heart. So if you constantly immersing yourself in this kind of evil energy, you will transform your body to be more suitable to do that thing. It's muscle memory. We program the body from the inside out, which is why the Bible say, as a man thinketh, so is he. So the moment you start to change your mind, your biology and DNA would automatically start to transform as well and turn you into a brand new person. So this God that allows one to change from good to bad, from bad to good, from good to bad, he was called Morpheus in the Matrix because he's embodying that ability for one to morph themselves. And morphing means to transform. This is the God of the crossroads that we talk to before we go into our next incarnation. So you see he's wearing all black and the agents are wearing all black. The agents are able to bring people in and out of the matrix and transform them just like Morpheus. They all are embodying this crossroad deity's abilities, like Papa Lekba. It's just the ability to transform a person. And that's what Morpheus represent. That's what Jesus represent. I'ma make you a new person, right, is what he's saying. That's what all of these deities are basically representing. What Morpheus represented to Neo in the Matrix, your transformation. And your transformation don't necessarily got to be a good one. See, the universe ain't forcing nobody to be good. That's why the battle of good and evil will always be fought on this earth realm. Because not everyone is gonna choose to be good. Some people are gonna say, hey, you know what? I like money. I like murder. I like sex, money, and murder. I like violence. I like gangbanging. I like killing. Some people really love that stuff, man. And they have immersed themselves in that stuff. And they ain't tired of it. You know, they want to experience that some more. And the universe is not gonna stop them from that. That is an option for a person to be if they want to be evil. See, the person choosing evil is saying, I ain't got time to be trying to get control over my body. I'm going to let my body do what thou wilt. If my body want to glut, if it want to kill, the hell with controlling my body. And basically these people are saying, my body going to just control me. They're a slave to the flesh. And others basically want to master their body. Morpheus gave Neo the same choice when he offered them either the red pill or the blue pill, because the blue pill is basically business as usual. Go back home, wake up in your bed, go back to capitalism, fancy restaurants, consumerism, politics, or you can unplug Neo and come on this spiritual side. And this deity ain't gonna force you to do one, he just gonna give you the choice. So the devil's trident represent this same God, the God of the crossroads. And again, the devil's trident is another form of the Egyptian lotus flower because the lotus flower represents what? Transformation. So back to the Nehushtan, or the bronze serpent that Moses carried around on the pole. The story of this Nehushtan is told in the book of Numbers. Now, keep in mind what I said earlier about the serpent creating duality and representing the zero spot when we deal with integers, the place that numbers come from. The serpent is responsible for creating numbers, which is why another deity for the serpent is Ma'at, which is math. So the fact that the serpent's story is told in the book of Numbers is a coded message right in front of our eyes about this deity that they call the demiurge. The story of this Nehushtan is told in the book of Numbers, where God instructs Moses to create the serpent to cure the Israelites of poison from the quote-unquote fairy serpents sent by God as punishment. So think about that, y'all. God sent serpents to punish the Israelites and make them sick, and he also used the serpent to heal them as well. And what we're not realizing is that instead of believing in magic and spookism, doesn't it sound more viable that they was using venom on the tip of their spears, or venom? They would dip their pellets in venom, because back in this time, I would imagine that they probably had a very simple kind of gun, or projectile. We're talking the Israelites. Just a theory that biological warfare, some tribes will dip their arrow in venom or poison. And if I shoot you with a venomous arrow with snake venom on it, I can also heal you with the same snake venom. Don't you know that when a snake bites you, the same snake that bit you, they teach you to take that snake to the hospital too, because they will make the treatment from that snake's venom. The same thing that can kill you can heal you. And that's why this God of the Bible, he's a serpent God. He basically is telling you, I giveth and I taketh away. I give life and I take life too. I heal people and I kill people. And that's this serpent God. And that's exactly what snakes do. You can use snake venom to heal or to kill. And that's the symbolism of the serpents. And even when you look at the yin yang, the serpent in the middle of the yin yang is telling you the same thing that the serpent God Yahweh of the Bible is telling you, that the demiurge is telling you, that the Baphomet is telling you, that Morpheus is telling you, that Moloch is telling you. And what are they telling you? I giveth and I taketh away. That's what the red and blue pill represent. Because the blue pill mean, I'm going to take away your knowledge of the astral plane. I'm going to take away your knowledge, Neo, that you're a god. I'm going to take away this knowledge that's embedded in your DNA, and I'm going to put you back in ignorance inside the matrix, because you're telling me ignorance is bliss. So the blue pill is basically God taking away. And the red pill is God giving you the God knowledge. If you take that red pill, God gonna give you all the mysteries of the universe. And God is Morpheus. God can make you either a god or just a regular human plugged inside the matrix, dumbed down. The choice is yours, Neo. That's what this deity represents. A duality point in the universe. A transformational point where, depending on what you do at this crossroads, determines who you become, which version of yourself you become. So that's the whole mystery of God giveth and taketh away. He's a serpent deity. That's why if you look at Papa Lekba, he got the snake around him, just like the demiurge. And this is the barber pole, the same tree of life concept in the Garden of Eden. And how this relates to the yin yang is that one side of the yin yang is negative and one side is positive. So when they say God give and God take away, the yin and the yang represent give and take. Now, if you want to compare this to the goddess Ma'at, which you can sync her to all of these deities too, she is personifying integers. And this is where all numbers are born from, family, from zero. So Ma'at represents math. The word Ma'at is just a play on the word math, because all numbers are born from zero. And this goddess is personifying the 0 point, or the North Pole. And instead of having on a Santa Claus hat, she have a feather on her head. That feather represents the lightest point, the neutral point. It ain't negative, it ain't positive. But Ma'at, in the middle of the negative and positive integers, it's the same concept of the serpent in the middle of the yin and yang, or negative and positive. Or the serpent in between Adam and Eve, masculine and feminine, push and pull, give and take. Because that's what the female and male are embodying. Implosion and explosion. Inhaling and exhaling. That's giving and taking. And that's the rhythm of life itself. You doing it right now. You call it breathing. So this goddess Ma'at, she represents the serpent in the middle that's splitting the universe, creating duality. This creates the integers, left, right, negative, positive. This is why this God says, I give and I take. We're dealing with mathematics. This God is embodying a universal concept, And we're no longer practicing these ancient advanced spiritual concepts. We've been dumbed down and we've become praise and worshipers and people who tithe and pay taxes and are relying on people to give us power outside of ourselves. And these are the very people who took our power away. We're seeking power in the form of politicians, prayer, worship, and pastors when we are all powerful beings. Once we activate the power within ourselves and go back to our original spiritual practices. Someone may say, why don't we do that, Sanchez? Because most of the people, when you start talking about this kind of stuff, they call it Satanism, they call it evil stuff and witchcraft. And I just gave you the history on how the world get to this point. Even today, like I said, when you talk about opening up the third eye, people will tell you not to do it. So they've done a good job programming us and scaring us away from our inner power as spiritual beings, as gods and goddesses. Nehushtan comes from the word Nahash, which means snake, and Nehushtan, which means bronze. So together you get bronze snake. These words are similar in sound, which is to emphasize the connection between the material and what's crafted. I also want to note, people, that all of these graven images, such as Moloch, the golden calf, Hathor, and the Nehushtan, all of these graven images were crafted by the Magi. These witches, another thing about the brew pot is cast iron. A witch ain't just a woman with a green face cooking a potion. These are people that was dealing with furnaces. They were making graven images. In order for you to even make a scepter, you basically got to be getting into metallurgy. So the God Yahweh is a God of metallurgy. And when you see him holding that hammer, it's because you got to beat the metal after it come out of the furnace. So it's all dealing with molding a person, transforming a person, putting them in the furnace, beating on them, smashing on them till they become this beautiful sculpted image. And this is just a ritual that's embodying the journey of our soul inside of the terrarium. The ancestor said that the earth realm was the beast or the computer. So this god Moloch is just them personifying this quantum computer that we call earth. But this quantum computer, everything that comes inside of this thing, it leaves out better than what it was when it came in. So when we see them putting the babies inside of this furnace, this Moloch deity is not child sacrifice. This artwork is showing how the ancestors, like in the Matrix movie, when a baby is born, they put the baby in the Matrix so that it can simulate these fake lives and get to know itself, know thyself. And so when the baby is finally born on the other side in the real world, it's a baby that's born like a god, because that baby already lived out so many lifetimes and mastered itself before it even came into the perfected platonic realm. That's why all of the beings in heaven, all of the gods in the higher planes, they are perfected masters because they've already lived out all of their earth lives. So that's why Jesus was saying, ye are gods, but you got to be born again first. Just like Neo had to be born again when he left out of his mama's belly. That was his matrix birth. But when he left out of the matrix, he was born out of his pod, out of his little bubble. And that was his other real birth that Jesus was speaking of. So this earth is just like a furnace. Whatever's put in this thing, it's gonna be very uncomfortable. Life ain't gonna be easy, because if you think of some going in a furnace, it's gonna be in a hot oven, and then when it come out, it's gonna get beat on and smashed on and put back into the oven over and over. And when you see the metallurgists putting the metal back into the furnace over and over, you can look at that like rebirth cycles. Like the creator saying, you ain't ready yet. You still got some rough ends to smooth out. You ain't ready yet. And so you go back into the furnace, heat him up some more to do what? Make him malleable, make him able to be molded, right? Loosen him up a bit. And now you can shape him. So this process can go on for a minute, and ultimately what you'll end up with is a beautiful, magnificent image. And that's the journey of every single one of us, the end goal. Even though it's an uncomfortable process, when you realize what this process is doing to you, how it's making you so beautiful and strong on a spiritual level, then guess what? You appreciate all of the things you go through, the good and the bad, because that's what's making you the beautiful person you are. If you look in the mirror and like who you are, you owe that to the good and the bad. Now, these graven images that were crafted by the Magi, this is craftsmanship done by sorcerers or whatever, these graven images. And the church banned graven images. Why did they do it though? The early Magi used graven images the way that we use cartoons and comic books for children today, as a gateway into the mind of a child. Like what Disney is doing, what Nickelodeon is doing, Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny. These are modern day graven images. See, back in the day before we had TV, we had graven images, and we would tell a story about these graven images. And these graven images would come to life when the story is told and you looking at the images. And so today we tell a lot of stories that were told around all of these world religious deities, which were all can trace their roots back to the age of metallurgy and graven images. These graven images are embodying the truth about our souls. These were your first concept of superheroes, your Supermans, your Batmans, your Aquamans. That's what these graven images was. So before TV, people sat around graven images and told stories, and it brought those graven images to life. They got so advanced with this thing that they would have the graven images blow smoke out the nose. You know, they would have a chamber in the belly, and they can light a fire, and they can have smoke come out the bull's nose. They can really bring that thing to life. And when you're telling a story about it to a child, that thing really comes to life. A child will have dreams about that, and in the child's dreams, the graven image will really be brought to life and animated in the mind, like how we make cartoons on TV, but this is going on mentally. So again, these graven images were important tools that were crafted and used by the Magi to gain access into a person's imagination. So when you look at the word imagination, you see the word Magi in imagination, because the Magi knew how to build a bridge or a gateway into a person's mind through mythology, through graven images, through storytelling, and etc. And this especially was efficient on children who already have a huge imagination, because they come here with their minds wide open. They are very impressionable. And that's still the same today, which is why they target the minds of children in Disney and cartoons with the subtle programming and all that stuff. This ain't nothing new under the sun. This is what they learned from the Magi of the old days, who was doing the same thing, but with graven images. So these graven images still dominate the world today, and they still serve as a place in our imagination, but we no longer know the truth about these deities and images today. But the reality that they occupy in the collective human psyche is the very foundation of all world religions. So that old world never went anywhere. We just became ignorant of these myths and legends today and how it applied to us as gods and goddesses. So we can't forget that Moses learned metallurgy from the Egyptians, and that is basically molding metals in a furnace into different graven images. And we know that the Egyptians were very good at that, because all around ancient Egypt, we see golden tombs with faces. They were bending metal like butter. So they were very good at fashioning metals and metallurgy. Moses brought that knowledge to the Western world, and that's why when America boomed, it was because of the steel industry, and the steel boom in the Western world brought us into the modern world we live in today of metropolitan areas, big cities, skyscrapers on the skyline. And this is what ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt would have looked like. If you go back to ancient Egypt and you looked at the skyline, you wouldn't just see Giza. It was other buildings that I'm pretty sure over time was crumbled and they lost now. But you got to look at that area like a metropolitan area. There would have been other buildings and structures all around too, like on the Las Vegas Strip. These would have been huge metro areas. But we saw that the Egyptians were molding metals. But when we look at the construction of the pyramids, we don't see any steel, any metals, which is very interesting. But we do know they had the ability to mold metals. They were metallurgists based upon the golden tombs and etc., which will explain how Moses would have known how to make the Nehushtan. He would have known metallurgy from the Egyptians. Another thing I wanted to point out that's very interesting about the Nehushtan, King Hezekiah of Judah destroyed the Nehushtan by breaking it into pieces. King Hezekiah destroying the serpent or the Nehushtan, it is very, very similar to Jesus also being called King of Judah, defeating Satan, the serpent. So Hezekiah was King of Judah. That was a title given to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ defeated the serpent, and King Hezekiah broke the serpent into pieces. Osiris's body was chopped up into pieces. And guess what? Osiris is another form of the serpent. All of these deities that chop their body up. This story of Christ defeating Satan, King Hezekiah chopping up the Nehushtan, just think about that, right? One of Christ's other form is a lion. And if you think about Christ defeating Satan and he was the king of Judah, and you think about Hezekiah chopping up the Nehushtan and he was the king of Judah, there's another story, the cat of Heliopolis fighting Apophis. And this cat of Heliopolis is chopping up a serpent. And it's almost like the same story of Hezekiah chopping up the Nehushtan, because Apophis or Apep is another form of the Nehushtan. So we have this cat called Magi, and some people call it Ra, and this thing is chopping up a serpent. The same story of Hezekiah chopping up the Nehushtan. And Apophis is another form of the Nehushtan. What you need to know is that at some point, the serpent knowledge was innocent. And once they corrupted the knowledge behind the serpent, people just worship the serpent without the knowledge that it embodied. That's like modern day religions. And that includes Satanism too. Everybody is lost because you got people who saying that they are Satanists and they literally worship the devil. And the devil is a mythological red dragon that don't even exist. They're no different than the people that's Christians who saying they worship God because he's a mythological idea that don't exist. The God and the devil are the good and bad in us. That's what this knowledge was about at first, mastering yourself, acknowledging the good and bad within the self, becoming your greatest version. And now we waiting on gods to make us great when we die. And in between, we just are horrible people that's constantly asking for forgiveness, saying, well, can't nobody basically be perfect or master themselves but God. Any human right now can rise above the desires of their flesh. But we are being taught it's impossible for you not to sin. It's impossible for you not to lie, cheat, steal, murder, and etc. And when you really think about it, it's not really that hard to be a good person. If you think about the laws of the old days, if we followed them, it would have made the world a better place, but we decided to do away with them. And that's what I'm talking about this modern world religious system that did away with the law. That's what all of these Abrahamic faiths, this new world religious system is all about. All of these symbols back in the day were there to teach us about how we need to master ourselves and gain control over our flesh. And then the new system came in, did away with the law and said, you know what, that's too hard. Ain't nobody gonna really be able to control themselves unless they God. So just ask for forgiveness and we got somebody that's gonna die for all of our sins. We got a scapegoat that we can sacrifice so that you can be able to lie, he can be able to cheat, he can be able to murder. And that right there is paganism. Thinking that blood sacrifice can wash away one's wrongdoings. And that's basically what most of the world is engaged in right now. They thinking that someone paid the price for their wrongs in life. And so there's no accountability and there's no systems on earth that forces us to become better people and really work on ourselves. Everything got us looking outside of ourselves, pointing fingers, thinking that everyone is always better than the next person, and no one want to take accountability for their shortcomings. That's the modern systems of the world, and they want it that way by design. So let's go back to this symbolism of King Hezekiah chopping up the Nehushtan serpent, because one of the symbols in early America is the "Don't Tread on Me" flag with the serpent, or what they call the Gadsden flag. And I don't think this concept come from him, because this symbol it's been around the world for a long time. But when we talk about King Hezekiah chopping up that serpent, here is the join or die chopped serpent. And this is a 1754 political cartoon by Benjamin Franklin. And we know that he held up the lightning rod with the lightning on it, which is very symbolic of the god Zeus. But he published it in the Pennsylvania Gazette in Philadelphia. It addresses the disunity of the 13 colonies during the French and Indian War. Several decades later, the cartoon resurfaced as one of the most iconic symbols in support of the American Revolution. But if you think of this whole concept of this chopped serpent, why would he even symbolize the colonies as a snake? Why a snake? Why not a bird? Why not a bunch of continents that's separated? Because all of these continents are connected. But he could have made the same point by detaching these pieces. He decided to turn these colonies into the body of a snake, and I think that is a good receipt to prove what I've been saying, that the early colonies in America worshiped the serpent. They worshiped the Nehushtan of Moses, and they worshiped the golden calf that we see right there on Wall Street. I believe that the early colonies, the pilgrims that came over here, were still under the knowledge of Moses, and they were still transitioning into the modern Christianity that we see today. I don't think they had fully popularized this white Jesus concept yet. I believe that the first colonies were still worshipers of Moloch and the serpent. And this chopped serpent is very symbolic, because those early colonies are the same people that's claiming that they're the children of Israel or Judah. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, broke the serpent into pieces. And so these people in early America that was setting up colonies, who were calling themselves followers of the king of Judah, they would have known a lot about this symbolism. And here's Benjamin Franklin with the chopped serpent. So this defeating of the serpent, or slaying the dragon, we see this concept in a whole bunch of cultures of men beating up snakes or men wrestling dragons. And this symbolizes the soul's victory over the flesh. This symbolizes the mind's victory over matter, mind over matter. When a person learns self-control, when they activate their kundalini because they mastered themselves. This is what was taught by our ancestors. And that also goes for Christ defeating Satan. It is the mind mastering the body. If your body is stronger than your mind, then that's what they mean by Satan is ruling over you. The basics of ancient spirituality was self-control and self-mastery. And all of the rituals of ancient spiritual systems was to help one be in better control of their mind, body, and soul, and to master themselves. People today they're involved in a bunch of superstitions and pseudo rituals, and they're not really connecting with their ancestors. They think it's a cheat code, They talking about voodoo and hoodoo, when really it's about self-mastery. The universe ain't gonna give us what we want. The universe is gonna give us what we are. If there's something you want to manifest, there's a transformation you got to make within your own self to attract that in the universe. So if you think about what Christ was trying to teach us, he was trying to teach us to resist temptation of the body or the devil, which is the flesh. We lost that simple foundation of spirituality, and now it's all about tithes and offerings, singing and begging for blessings, prosperity. See, the ancients didn't need police. They was able to govern themselves during the golden age. It was only after the fall of man that humans needed government systems. And these government systems want us to need them, which is why they want to keep us in a fallen state, in a state where we're not self-lawing masters of our own vehicle called the body as gods. And this is all another big connection between Jesus Christ and the Nehushtan serpent. Is that this serpent in the Garden of Eden wanted to teach Adam and Eve that they were gods. This serpent told Adam and Eve that he wanted to give them the knowledge that God got so that they can become like God. And so that is something that Jesus and the serpent have in common, because Jesus was trying to teach man that ye are gods. And this is a big nail in the coffin when it comes to making my point that Christ is the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and that the serpent on the tree later became Christ on the cross. And you can see that they was teaching the same message, that ye are gods. We see a lot of concepts in early America that we see in ancient Egypt and ancient Judah, who would have learned from the Egyptians, such as the symbolism of the chopped up serpent. Serpent symbolism, period, was very popular in Egypt. Serpents and cows. And in early America, that's what we see. We see a lot of serpent symbolism, and we see a lot of cowboy culture. Cowboy culture has nothing to do with farming and herding cows. It has everything to do with the worship of the cow god Moloch, which is why cowboys say yeehaw, because the name of their god is Yahweh, Yahweh, which is another way of saying yeehaw or Yahoo. It's a praise to Yahweh. And that's why the cowboys wear golden fringes, just like the Hebrews, because early American culture was influenced by Moses and Egypt, Cometicism, and etc. Just like when we see the cat of Heliopolis in early America, in Egypt, that cat is called Bastet. Cats were very important in ancient Egypt, and cats were a divine symbol in ancient Egypt. So when you see the cat of Heliopolis, that shows you ancient Egypt's influence on other cultures. The fact that even in early America, one of the spiritual symbols of the indigenous people of early America, it was the jaguar and the panther. So when we talk about the serpent becoming severed into pieces, you can look at that also like the god El multiplying into the Elohim, because El is the singularity and the Elohim is when the one becomes many. And I already went over that, the concept of one becoming many. That's what the symbol of Optimism is telling us. And we're going to hop back and deal with Optimism briefly just a little bit more as we move on. How our most high glorified greatest version fell into many lesser versions or alternative versions. And from the one came the many. Because when things fall, they fall apart. Just like these rays of light is showing you coming from the singularity. And this is how the single consciousness of God became split up into different avatars that exist into many alternative universes. And another way to symbolize that is chopping up the serpent. Because if you think of our singular consciousness as a green serpent traveling through the heavens, once this serpent enters the chimney or lodges itself into the North Pole, then all of these planes start to churn and rotate, and it severs the snake into pieces. So if you look at the image on the screen right now, this is the Mesopotamian cosmos. What they're showing us is the North Pole is basically an open gateway that allows one's entry into the multiverse. It's like an elevator shaft, and you can access any floor at this location. And basically how all of our different avatars got trapped on these different planes of existence was when our Kundalini lodged itself into this tunnel that we call the North Pole. These cylinders, these netters started to rotate. And that's why this central point is called the Ripper. And it ripped the snake apart. And a piece of the snake is occupying each of these planes. And that is the story of the Kundalini, the knowledge of the Kundalini. Our Kundalini is one serpent that got chopped up into 7 chakra layers. And each of these layers of the self is a different version of God's consciousness having its own experience in its own world or its own universe. So this is how the one became many. And if you never chopped up a worm before, then you wouldn't know that each individual section that you chopped off becomes its own individual moving part. So a serpent, a worm, things like this are good animals to use to make this example of how the one becomes many individual units of consciousness. And that is another mystery I wanted to reveal about the chopped up serpent, thinking about your Kundalini being chopped up into 7 different chakras. So when they put this serpent back together again, like they did with the body of Osiris, then you will resurrect like Osiris did, which is your second birth out of the simulation. Your Kundalini got chopped up into 7 planes of existence, and you started at the lowest one. The lowest piece of your consciousness fell to the lowest universe. So you started at the bottom, and you're now going to rise up the stairway of heaven, collecting all of the severed pieces. So when they talk about all the body pieces of Osiris being collected, so that they can be reunited so he can resurrect. That's the story of us and our journey in the simulation. Your 7 reincarnations is basically your higher self coming into these 7 planes to collect the pieces of itself that fail. And this is symbolic of them putting the body back together again. So as you travel up this stairway, you are collecting all of these severed pieces of your God body that got trapped in these different dimensions. And at your last incarnation, you get that final piece, which is the head, and you'll rise up out this thing as the God that you was to begin with. And again, you will be better than what you was before you came. This whole experience is bringing out the best in us. That's why I compared it to the furnace situation earlier, and this is why Yahweh is a God of metallurgy. To learn more about Yahweh as the God of metallurgy, go and check out my other pay-per-view presentation entitled Yahweh the Conceiver, How the Age of Metallurgy Forged Human Consciousness. So when we talk about this herald staff, this caduceus, this Hermes staff, this Nehushtan, or whichever name you want to use, right? We also know it is also the medical staff that's used for medicine in the medical industry. And if you think about that, the 2 serpents represent what I just told you about the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible can make you sick and he can heal you too. He give life and he take life. And if you think about it, this God seemed to take life from the poor people and give it to the rich. We look at the health of the poor people and we look at how the poor people around the world sell their blood, sell their plasma. They are being given to cheap restaurants, cheap food, which make them die quicker because of their poverty state. And they can't afford quality health care because everything is about money, which means that the rich in this world get treated better, not only on a social level, but even on a medical level. And people, that is very inhumane. And we don't look at it that way. That medical staff represent the God that kills and the God that heals. Because if you want to tell the truth about the matter, the medical mafia, they heal some people, but they kill some people who they want depopulated from the earth. So the fact that you look at the medical mafia symbol, the medical industry symbol, and it's the same symbol, we can apply that same message to it. They give life and they take life, because think about it. Even if you say Sanchez, they do save lives every day, because, you know, my brother was shot. They rushed him to the ER and they saved his life. You right, though. They saved life. But guess what? When they was taking them bullets out your brother, saving his life, they was killing a baby down the hallway doing an abortion. So this same building that's saving a life is taking a life when it comes to abortion. When it said God give and he take away. And this is the symbol of that God. And that's literally what these people do. They give to some and take from another. They favor one group and they constantly give to that group, and they take from the other group. And that's what the God of the Bible do. He gives his chosen people things that he has to take from someone else. This is called manifest destiny. But the presentation isn't about world conquest. Let's move on. Earlier, when I was talking about Ma'at and the one that splits the universe, creating duality, I forgot to let y'all know another representation of that split is Jesus breaking the bread. The bread represents the terrarium. It represents the earth realm, or the sky vault that's open in the firmament dome. Moses had an assistant named Joshua, and Jesus' name in Hebrew is Yeshua, which is Joshua. Why was Moses' assistant name equivalent to Jesus? Because Jesus actually continued on the agenda and teachings of Moses and the Egyptians, which was that all who believe in me gonna be saved, versus all who batter themselves, all who master themselves. See, this kind of teaching is what done away with the law. But again, so many contradictions in the Bible, because Jesus told us we were gods and the kingdom of heaven is within. But Jesus also say to access the kingdom of heaven, all got to go through me and believe that I died for your sins. But why do I got to go through Jesus to get through a kingdom of heaven that's in the sky if he told me it was in me? See, these are contradictions that shouldn't confuse you when you realize people are speaking for mythological characters, and that different people have spoke for these same characters throughout different ages and times, and there was no checks and balances, so we see contradictions in these characters, which reflect the contradictions of the people that's speaking through these particular deities. Joshua, or Yeshua, Jesus, was Moses' assistant. What does this mean? I mean, just think about it a minute, right? What assisted Moses throughout his endeavors? The Nehushtan. Moses always have these Christ-like assistants with him before Christ. Because if you think about it, the Nehushtan is one of the things that assisted Moses in his journey. And the Nehushtan is an ancient form of Jesus Christ. And then Joshua is Moses' assistant, and his name translates to Jesus. Very, very interesting stuff. The Nehushtan assisted Moses and acted as a guiding light prior to Christ. And what did Christ say? I am the light. How did God manifest to Moses before Christ? As the Nehushtan and as a burning bush. And again, the burning bush goes back to Kabbalah, as you can see here. So that was the spiritual system of Moses, Kabbalism. That's what Islam and the Black Cube in Mecca is all based upon. Kabbalah, which is the cube of Allah, Kabbalah. We're not practicing these things the antique way, the way they were intent for us to engage with them. That's why we're not getting anything out of these world religions, because we don't have the knowledge behind these rituals and symbols. We only have the spookism, and when we only have the spookism and mysticism, that doesn't make us gods. That just make us God-fearing. Another deity that we can sync to Moses and the Nehushtan is the Greek god Asclepius, who also carries the Nehushtan, and he's a bearded deity with the robe on. And it is just another parallel to Moses, another version of Moses. And notice that Ma'at has serpents associated with her, brazen serpents associated with her. Remember what I said earlier about Ma'at, math, and the integers? Well, Asclepius is just a masculine form of this same concept. We syncing him with all of the others, representing the serpent deity or the demiurge. And again, when you see Asclepius holding his rod, that's no different than Zeus holding the lightning bolt. One thing I want to break down about the name Asclepius is that I broke it down into 2 words. The first word is dealing with the ASCLE at the beginning. If you rearrange those, you get the word scale. And then you left with the word pious. So when you take the word scale plus the word pious, that can be translated as scales of righteousness, because the word asel is basically the word scale, and the word pious is dealing with righteousness. So the scales of righteousness. And again, he's another form of Ma'at. We know that she carries the liberty scales, or the scales of righteousness, the pious scales. And when you take that word scale and pious, it can turn into the name Asclepius. So the scales of righteousness, and again, he is symbolizing the untipped scales, just like Ma'at, the one that's splitting duality. He's neither high nor low. That's what the serpent in the middle of the yin yang represent. Neutrality, the creation of duality, centeredness, Santa, center, Satan. And that's what this serpent deity is all about. And when you think about the fact that it all represents balance, Ma'at means balance. The serpent in the middle is not dealing with negative or positive. The 0 is not dealing with negative or positive. The serpent in the middle ain't dealing with yin or yang. And so it's basically teaching balance. And the reason why this is the symbol of good health or healing, and why it's associated with all of the healers like Christ and Moses and etc., is because the secrets of healing the body is to bring the body into balance. That's the secrets to proper health. We know that the modern medical mafia is feeding us foods to keep us out of balance, and they're keeping us in an imbalanced state so that we can rely on medicines and treatments our whole life. True healing is let thy medicine be thy food, but the food they feed us make us need medicine, and they have a cycle of reliance, and they want to control how long the human lifespan is on earth, because we used to live longer. So this deity represents the force in between all of nature's opposing forces. So the yin and the yang are like 2 opposing forces, but this serpent in the middle, instead of making these 2 fight each other, it literally turns them into one unified thing. It merges them. So this deity is called the demiurge, and that's a way of saying the merge, the one that merges, brings the left together with the right, the man together with the woman. That's why you see the serpent in between Adam and Eve. And that's the whole thing about the North Pole in between the sun and the moon. This is the concept that in the center of the universe, we have 2 polarities marrying each other like mama and daddy. So the law of the universe is that opposites attract, not that opposites fight each other and go to war. And once we practice that law on earth, we will manifest a utopia on earth. What'll be manifested is true equality and justice for all. So this is the deity that is personifying this event in the universe where the dual forces of nature are merging for the sake of giving birth to existence itself. And on a very basic cosmic level, that can be looked at as light and darkness. So by practicing balance, or the act of sharing, Mother Nature equally splits the yin-yang. The polarities are properly balanced. Now, things aren't balanced on Earth at this time. The Earth is going through a disease state just like humanity, as within, so without. So she represents this neutral place in the universe, again, where these 2 polarizing aspects of the universe merge together like a man and woman marrying each other. She's personifying a Taurus field. Her body would be the pole in the middle that's recycling all of the energy through the middle. And the left and right side of this Taurus field would be her wings. And by her representing negative and positive push and pull, if you look at what's happening in the middle of the Taurus field, for every push, there's an equal pull, and that's perfect balance. That's what's keeping its energy flowing in and around this thing perpetually. Because as the energy is pulled in to one side, it's pushed out of the other one equally. And this is another reason why the Ouroboros bites its tail. And she represents peace for that reason. Because instead of these opposing forces fighting each other, because of this event, they merge with each other and their union results in life itself. She represents peace. And if you think about it, that was a title given to Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace. And Jesus is a modern masculine form of Ma'at. But the concept has been totally plagiarized by the time you get to Christ. But Christ in between the two thieves is just a plagiarized version of Ma'at in between the two scales. It was all about balance. So this central location, again, is why we call the other form of this deity Santa, which means center. And Ma'at in the center of duality with the feather on her head, wearing a feather on your head, is a very Americanized concept. The Indians wore feathers on their heads. The cowboys would put a feather in their hat. The pimps put feathers in their hats. You get it, right? We put the feathers in the fedora. That goes all the way back to Ma'at. And that again is another influence of Egypt, or this goddess Ma'at. Everyone had their own version of this deity that represent the one that creates duality and balance, order out of chaos. So if you read about the Greek god Asclepius, the powers of this god, it was said that this god could heal the sick, raise the dead, and use his venom as a healing drug or poison. Doesn't that sound like the God of the Bible? Because the God of the Bible is Yaldabaoth, or the Demiurge, aka the Baphomet. And what I'm showing you is all of these wise men is just embodying the spirit of Yahweh. Moses, Asclepius, they are just other forms of this God in other folklore and other traditions. See, the whole thing about the racetrack, running the race of life, passing a baton, is all dealing with this Saturn, Satan, serpent knowledge. The Statue of Liberty holding that torch, that's the baton. That's the rod of Asclepius. The central nervous system, and like I said, our central nervous system got chopped up into 7. Just think of this rod getting broken into 7 pieces, and you got to put it back together again. And that's the whole concept of passing a baton, like I told you earlier, because the last piece of God's consciousness fell into the lowest realm, and that's where you starting at to collect that piece. And as you travel up, you collect all the pieces. And as you move from one body to the next body and reincarnate to higher and higher planes, you're literally passing the baton to yourself, to your next version. So when this version of you die, when Jesus give up the ghost, then your next version of you is born in a higher realm, and you just passing a baton. Everything you learned in this realm, and you keep mastering yourself as you go, passing the baton, which is the consciousness, everything you learned from the previous place. That's like a diploma. Like when we go to school and they roll up the scroll for your diploma, you can look at this baton like that too. At the end of every lifetime, everything you learned is rolled up into like a Jedi saber. And this is Jack's beanstalk. This same lightsaber, this rod you see them holding, Jack's beanstalk, it allowed them to ascend to the next level, just like in school. When you get your diploma, when they put that little scroll in your hand, that little rod, that's saying that now you are allowed to graduate and ascend further to the next level of your life. So the word diploma sounds a lot like deployment. You're being deployed off into the real world, which is beyond the veil. So when we graduate from high school, that's a whole ritual that your soul is yet to do when it leaves the earth simulation. We're gonna do that whole ritual again when we leave here. We will receive the diploma, which is the lightsaber, all of our knowledge and gifts of the gods that we obtain from this particular life, and we'll use that to be better and better as we move up this stairway. We're building our ladder as we go, as we collect each of these batons and pass up to the next one, passing the baton all the way up till we get to the top and up out of here. And this is also why it's called the Passover. Each baton is one of the severed pieces of this serpent that was divided upon its fall. So this is the knowledge of the serpent, or the fall of man. We didn't just fall, we fell apart into duality, and the one became many. So Asclepius can do everything that all of these other magicians or Magi could do, as far as healing the sick, raising the dead, and using venom in his rod. The serpent in his rod, the venom from that snake was used to kill or heal, like I explained earlier, which is the secrets of why they chose a serpent symbol. Because if you think about it, what do you call a person in your life that is appearing to help you, but they're also hurting you? So they may show up giving you gifts or perks. You may think they're a friend, but you don't see that at the same time they helping you, they hurting you even more. And this is like being betrayed with a kiss or with a gift. We call a person that do that, we call that person a snake. A person that is trying to kill you and heal you, or be your friend and your enemy, or what we call a frenemy, we call that person a snake. And if you look at the way a snake moves, it goes both ways. Look at the way that a snake moves its body. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. It kills and heals, basically. It yins and yangs. And that's why we call these people a snake that move both ways like that. And that's the whole secrets of this deity and these symbols. So the cult of Asclepius flourished from the 6th century BCE until the end of the Greek antiquity. People would pray to Asclepius in temples called Asclepia for healing and well-being. And that is the same thing we doing today for Jesus. Some say Asclepius may have started as a historical figure known for his healing abilities, and that he is mentioned in the Iliad as a gifted physician, but not as a god. He eventually became a god as his following grew. So it was said that the centaur Chiron was the one who taught Asclepius the art of healing. This is all mythology. It is also said that at length Zeus, the king of the gods, which is another title given to Jesus, the King of Kings, which is why Jesus is Jesus. But it says that Zeus was afraid that Asclepius might render all men immortal and slew him with the thunderbolt. Isn't that something? The God that didn't want all men to be immortal is the God that we are worshiping today. So the mindset of Zeus was, you don't want all men to be immortal. You don't want all men to be equal, all men to be gods. You want some men to be dependent on others to heal them, so that they can be vulnerable for those same people to kill them. A God that knows that world conquest is based upon biological warfare will not want all men to be immortal, because then he couldn't biologically attack them and achieve his agenda of world conquest. So this mythology is basically showing you the mindset of the people transitioning into a more of the mindset of, let's hide the knowledge, let's keep people dumbed down and sick and away from the knowledge that would make them activate their God self and their immortality. And then they would then turn around and promise you immortality in the form of Neuralink technology and all that, so that you can stay dependent on them. That's why in the medical industry of the world today, ain't no such thing as healing. It's all treatment. Because if they really heal everybody, then it'll ruin the whole medical industry. That whole mentality we just read in this mythology. And when you think about the caduceus, the caduceus have always symbolized peace for the Greeks and Romans. And that goes back to what I was saying about the Prince of Peace, which is Jesus Christ on the cross. Compare his sacred geometry to the caduceus. So when you think about the caduceus and all of these other symbols that I've mentioned previously, let's compare all of those to this symbol, which is the symbol for Mercury, The astronomical symbol for Mercury in later antiquity, the caduceus, was the basis for the astronomical symbol for the planet Mercury. And what is Mercury? The messenger god. And what was Christ? The messenger god. So Mercury, Hermes, we see the connection right here. And this same symbol was used as an emblem to indicate non-combatants. So if there was a war or combat going on, they would put this symbol on the people who are out of the fight. Leave them alone. They don't got nothing to do with the fight. They're innocent. So with this symbol, one was saved, literally. Now, the way we talk about these symbols today is a bunch of folklore, spookism, and mysticism, because these symbols is not going to save you from hellfires and help you get into heaven, because these are mythological places. That is fairy tale and religious belief. The truth about all of these symbols being the symbol of salvation, and that those who bear this mark gonna be saved. Just like when you read Revelation, it said when Christ marked his people, then they gonna be saved. Those who wear this mark, don't mess with them, they saved. And the people who ain't got the mark, the Antichrist gonna be able to torture them and do what he want. But see, the Antichrist just mean the adversary, the the enemy. And all of this belief stuff today that we caught up in, the truth about this symbol, go and research the emblem of the non-combatants. This was literally used in combat as a symbol to mark a group of people so that they may be saved from the Armageddon, which is war that's taking place on earth. So when you read the book of Revelation, look at how similar the similarities are with this right here. Because in the book of Revelation, you got this world war going on and people getting tortured. It's all hell breaking loose. But the people that wears the mark of Christ, that's marked by Christ, they gonna be fine. And this whole concept was a literal concept that actually happened during combat on earth. And again, they would mark the non-combatants with this symbol in combat to indicate to both sides of the war, they are neutral. Leave them alone. Because what does the serpent represent? The serpent represent neutrality. Remember, Ma'at and all of these other deities, they represent the center point. Ma'at represents the zero in the middle of the integers. This is the one that ain't taking no sides. They ain't picking no sides. They're neutral. They're innocent. They are not part of the polarity or combat. In ancient time, they would put this emblem on these people, this same emblem of the serpent, and it literally was their salvation during a time of turmoil and war, like what we're being taught in the church. And again, the symbol means that these people were neutral. They ain't on the left or the right. They're innocent. Leave them out of it. They're not part of the war. And that's what this deity represents. Not taking no sides. Not left nor right, just a neutral point. The term caduceus comes from a Greek word meaning herald's wand and refers to the staff carried by the ancient Greek god Hermes, called Mercury by the ancient Romans. He was messenger of the gods, protector of travelers, shepherds, and merchants, as well as the protector of thieves, liars, and gamblers. So for the people that's wondering, Sanchez, what does all this have to do with Satanism? And what does all this have to do with evil and all of that? If you look at the astronomical symbol of Mercury, you can see it's just a play on the devil. And it's like a stick figure of Satan with the horns. But remember, devil is just the word live backwards. And when it says that this deity is protecting shepherds and merchants, you got to understand the shepherds are like Jesus, the people that's soul harvesting, the people that's farming cattle. Because in the Garden of Eden, in our original system under the law, you couldn't harm no animals. So being a shepherd would be a sin in the old days, because we were vegan and Adam and Eve weren't shepherds. They didn't have livestock. They didn't have a slaughterhouse. And a merchant, like I said, a corporate person, a baron, a rich man, a Wall Street guy, protector of travelers, meaning people that's coming in and out of the simulation, protector of thieves, liars, and gamblers. What does all this mean? This meant what I was telling you earlier. This deity is what separates good and bad in the universe. This deity creates duality, and this deity is making it possible for you to be whatever you want to be. So if you want to be a liar, if you want to be a gambler, you can be that only in the simulation. In the base reality, you can't be nothing but a god living the truth and going back to the law. But remember the deity that protects thieves and liars and gamblers. Who is that? That's Jesus today. That goes back to what I was saying earlier about forgiveness, the deity that done away with the law. So a person can be a murderer, a rapist, and Jesus is saying, I'm gonna protect you. If you call on my name and ask for forgiveness, it don't matter what kind of evil act you did, this deity will protect you. It will protect the pedophiles, the murderers, you name it, the lowest of lowest evil creeps on the earth. This deity will give them refuge. And you can also see the parallels between Mercury and Jesus as well with the imagery and sacred geometry. So it's basically the same God coming by many names at many times. And that's what Jesus told everybody. He said to his disciples when he left that I'm going to come again at the end of the age. He also said that he came several times to the earth and also saying that I go by many names. So you can see a lot of deities around the earth that popped up at different times in different places. Even though they have different names, it is this same God that told you he come and go from the earth and that he go by many names. So this is the earth God. This is the earth God. He creates a realm that allows the most evil people a place to dwell, the most evil of souls. And that's the earth realm governed by this deity. And that's why I say he's the protector of thieves, liars, and gamblers, because he literally creates the terrarium, the house for the sick, for the people that's psychologically ill. Because the way that the universe is set up, according to a lot of cultures, you have these ascended supreme gods and gurus in the higher realms. And the lower you go, the souls are kind of getting more and more corrupted and degraded. So in Greece, other gods have been depicted holding the caduceus, but it was mainly associated with Hermes. It was said to have the power to make people fall asleep or wake up, and also made peace between litigants, and is a visible sign of his authority being used as a scepter. The whole part about making people fall asleep and wake up, just think about Neuralink and uploading the consciousness. The whole thing about making a person fall asleep for medical purposes in any way, even when it comes to sedation, or if you getting a surgery and they sedate you, they put you to sleep so they can do the surgery because you wouldn't be able to take the pain if you was woke. So if you look at what happened to Adam in the Garden of Eden, God put him to sleep and did a surgery and opened up his rib cage to make Eve and then woke him back up. So this is the God of the Bible. Again, the one that got the power to make people fall asleep and wake up. That's what sedation is. When you go in the hospital and they sedate you and put you under, they got the power to make people fall asleep and wake up in the hospital. And what is the symbol of the hospital? The caduceus. So every time somebody go to the hospital for a particular illness, they say, let me get a blood sample. It is said that over 120 million blood samples are collected every year. And they tell you that they throwing them away. But I did my research. These things go to biolabs. This blood is worth a lot of money. Why would they throw that blood away when down the street they paying you for it at the plasma center? So a lot of stuff we think is medical waste is basically an underground black market where a lot of this waste is being sold by governments, but they can't let us know because it's against the current laws to turn medical waste into an economy. So all of that go under the black market, and governments of the world make more money with the black market organ donating, organ harvesting, blood and all that than anything else. We literally live in a vampire world. And the reason they don't want this to be a thing on the surface where it got to stay underground is because it's inhumane. It's a conflict of interest. If we found out hospitals was making money from our blood and organs, then you wouldn't want to go. You wouldn't trust them. You would be like, how do I know that you ain't cutting my thing out because you making money off of it? If a doctor be like, yeah, we got to remove your organ, or yeah, we got to chop your leg off, or we got to take some more blood from you, or we got to do this to you, people wouldn't trust them. You'll be like, how am I sure they really got to do that to me? Because they making a lot of money off these organs. See, people will lose trust. So I do think that these hospitals and these governments around the world has a medical waste conspiracy. There are so many women that are having babies through C-section. And what you find out is it is more medical waste produced with a C-section, and the procedure is more expensive. So they making money and they getting these free organs. This is worth more than fentanyl and dope, y'all. Human medical waste. I know that sounds gross, but you got labs and laboratories that's paying millions of dollars for things that you would think are gross because they needed to do studies with. And what you don't know is just like online with these websites, a lot of your information is being sold underground on the black market to third-party people who want your information. Facebook doing it to you too. Twitter doing it to you too. They selling a lot of your information and you don't even know nothing about it. It's a whole invisible economy and market, and it's worth trillions, dude. And this is an extension of the black market with the organ harvesting, the information harvesting. The people on this earth want to know everything about us so they can control us more. And like I said, I don't think these people in power are human. I think that they rely on organ harvesting to stay alive. They've cheated death. They are demigods that are bound to the earth, part human, part machine. And their machine side have to constantly be fed a fresh energy and electric source. This is what you got to realize. They said an obelisk in Egypt is a symbol of power. Now, a lot of people say the pharaoh is an alien, and I don't believe that. If we want to think that far out the box, what I will entertain is that our ancestors got so advanced that they did create artificial intelligence that was indistinguishable from humans, mankind or humanoids. And that these humanoids, these hybrids, these world's first transhumans, cyborgs, if you will, they were smarter than regular humans. So they started to police us and guide us and become gods over us, just like Google today. Just like Siri, just like Alexa. They got a robot that worked for the UN. Her name is Sophia. So we started putting robots in power, or artificial beings, humanoids. And I believe that we ain't doing nothing new under the sun today. I think that there have always been a creature among us that looks like a human, smell like a human. I'm talking about everything human, but it doesn't have a soul. And these things were spoke about in all of the religious texts and all of that. So these first dynasties that set up shop in the world and created this new system on the world religion, these were done by humanoids. And if you look at the whole Matrix script, that's basically what I'm giving you here too. We created robots and we started relying on robots and machines. And over time, the machines and robots started relying on us to feed them information and data like we do every day with our email and YouTube and all of that. Look at how much we engage with machines and computers. So if you were a cyborg, the electric part of your body would need to electrically be powered. And I don't think that our ancestors changed their batteries or had a battery to power that electric part of themselves. You know, our transhuman ancestors, the ones that merged with machines, I believe all of these obelisks that we see around the world were part of a wireless power grid for the non-humans to be able to charge their robot side. So if you think of a creature that's half robot and half human, it's an immortal creature. It can't die, but it got to constantly charge up the robot side. Who would want to keep taking a battery out? Or who would want to plug into a wall and sit there for hours like a cell phone? I believe the robots started to transform our world into an electronic technocracy, and that's what all of these obelisks around the world are. They represent when mankind rose to power and created his own energy grid so that he can be a daywalker. And basically, it was a next step in the evolution of the humanoids. Because you got to think, if you're a cyborg or a humanoid, however you want to call it, if you're anywhere in proximity to a tower at any given time, you're constantly charging up your machine have. You never got to worry about power, so to speak. Now think about what I'm saying. The earth have been through so many cataclysms and apocalyptic events where humans have been wiped out, entire jungles have been removed, lakes dried up, mountains have been crumbled. And through all of that, guess what? All of these obelisks around the world are still standing. That don't make no sense. All of these Tekkens and pyramids and stuff from the ancient world, it never got destroyed. It's something on the earth that want that stuff to stay standing. And I believe that this is the foundation of the power grid for the humanoids, meaning that if the humans destroyed all of these towers, they couldn't charge or power themselves. And so when you research what the Tekken or the obelisk represent, they say it's a symbol of power. Why would they say that this thing is a symbol of power? And I know it symbolizes world power on a social level, but on a spiritual level, when these early dynasties rose to power, I really believe these were when there was a power shift on Earth and humans lost control and AI took over, and they've been in power ever since. So when we see the dynastic age come onto the Earth, that's when all of these Tekkens and obelisks start erecting. I do think that these pharaohs and these early dynasties were humanoid families that was using hella technology like Neuralink and scepters and obelisks because they were humanoids. They're robots. They were terraforming the place. They need the technology to help them stay immortal. At least half of them, their electric side, their machine have. And as for their mortal side, which is going to continue to age, that part of them that is the other half that's human, then that's where your organ harvesting come into play. Because when the humanoids took over, the first transhumans took over, they need an endless supply of organs and blood and plasma and basically medical waste. And if you look at the current medical industry, they got just that. If you look at this whole system that we under, it seems like it's designed to cater to cyborgs versus mortal organic humans. It's catering to genetically modified things and hybrids, all the way down to the food that's in the grocery store. So part of these beings need an endless supply of organs or blood and all of that good stuff. And part of these beings need an endless supply of free energy, which they're pulling that from our chi, from our core, from our aura. So these are truly vampires. And not just on a quote unquote physical and biological level, but on a spiritual and auric field level as well. They are trying to siphon the energy from inside of you and around you. And that's because the energy that's flowing through your body is also flowing around your body. So as that energy flows through your body, we call it blood and flowing through your vein. We say that's plasma through your veins, right? But plasma is electricity. Think of a lightning bolt. That's what your veins are, lightning strikes. And that energy, it permeates, it crosses over beyond the physical body into a spiritual body that is around the physical body that we're calling the aura. And these vampires in power are harvesting us for both of these energies. It's the same energy, but as it flows in us, it transforms into a different kind of energy than as it flows outside of us. They need both forms of it. Think of it this way. They receive this energy from us through our organs and blood and all that on a physical level. That's how they get the energy on a physical level. On a spiritual level, they are sucking like your mind state, your auric field, and they sucking people drive that to where you see people losing their vibrance, their essence, and becoming followers of idols and having very shallow personalities and losing their innocence and getting this very gray glim or dark veil over their countenance versus that bright vibration and spark of light you once saw in them. So they don't want just your organs and blood, they want your light as well. And a vampire got two teeth. One is for the body, one is for the spirit. These vampires, they want to harvest your soul and your body. I remember Jay-Z had a rap line. He said, the Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. And he wouldn't lie to us. They got him too. But, you know, they do want your mind, soul, and body, is what I'm saying. They want to siphon every layer of the self away from you and feed off of it to fuel themselves. We're talking very advanced and ancient parasitical spiritual beings among us. So if you look at the herald staff or the Nehushtan, another form of that is the US dollar symbol. And what that symbol represents is currency. But remember that true currency or power comes from the core of the self, chi energy. And another way to look at it is health is wealth. You can have all the money in the world and be sick and you won't enjoy it. You can be on your deathbed with $1 billion. So the people with all the money, they also wanted the best health. The rich people started to look for ways to stay alive longer. And they expanded their life all the way up to the point of immortality while shortening the lifespans of everyone else. So health is wealth, which is why the rich people in the world, they don't really care about the money like you do. They care about harvesting energy. They care about immortality. These are immortal beings. They've achieved immortality. They make the money for you. And as long as you keep chasing the money, you're like a hamster on a wheel that they can use for an energy source. As you chase the money, your chase gets translated to energy that they feed off of. So the symbol of money is literally power, currency. But the people ain't in power because the money don't give you power. The money is a medium to siphon power from the people. So this goes into the central banking system, the generational wealth gap, all of this. So currency is currency. Cur is cure, core. The cure comes from the core self. Because remember that the symbol of cure or medicine is the serpent. And the innermost part of the self is the serpent on the staff or the energy around the spinal cord. Once you get that right, everything that's expanding outward from that, meaning the body, will be right. Because all of the organs in the body is connected to your central nervous system. And it ain't no organ in your body that can't be reached by your spinal cord. Because all of these wires that's going to each organ, they are just going to the spinal cord to splice up into a big braid. And that big braid goes all the way up the spinal cord to attach all of these organs to the mind and the brain, which is the controller of them all. All of these organs are wired to the spinal cord. A lot of times if an organ fails, there may be a disconnect from that organ to the spine. They will tell you that that organ needs to be removed. They would call it a cancer. When the ancestors would just reconnect that organ. You got to think that we're electric beings. A lot of the practices that are being performed is ways for them to harvest more organs, because original medical practice were non-invasive. They can even heal you with sound, and they know that, but they want to cut on you, do surgery, take blood, because that's a whole market to keep these vampires alive on the black market. So health is wealth, and they know that. People will risk their health to go and get the wealth. And that's how you got so many rappers drinking lean, popping pills, and these young boys got all them millions of dollars, but they ODing every day. They ODing off of dirty Sprites and pills and all that, because they don't realize health is wealth. So the symbol of money is blasphemous, because the world is in a diseased state while everybody chasing money. But the life expectancy of humans is getting shorter and shorter. And if you think about these vampires and this medical mafia agenda, it is a perfect situation that we got on the earth today with this medical industry. It creates an endless supply chain of blood, organs, and just what they call medical waste, but it's not waste. But what they're calling medical waste, these hospitals are turning around and they got a whole black market industry underground, an illegal off-grid business, and the governments of the world are in on it too. And this thing is worth trillions of dollars. And you think they throwing that waste away. It ain't no waste. All of this stuff we give them, they value this stuff. And if you knew that the hospitals was in on this, you would see now why they always go to the most radical solution. They hoping to create a situation where they can do a procedure that's more expensive. And we already see that they are trying to create an endless supply of electrical clean energy to power their robot side too. You as a pure organic human, you are able to get your energy from the core of yourself. You ain't nothing but pure energy inside of a body. So when that pure energy inside of your body decide to leave your body, then your body gonna drop dead. What's keeping your body powered is that you have a soul inside of it. But there are some people on the earth that don't have a soul. So they are relying on technology, organ harvesting, and all kind of other stuff to help them cheat death for thousands and thousands of years indefinitely. Because the earth is the real life Salem's Lot. They turned this place to a harvesting planet for vampires, just like in Salem's Lot and just like in the Matrix movie. But these spooky creatures ain't like Dracula. We need to think more like artificial humans or humanoids. So earlier we read that God sent down these fiery flying serpents to make the children of Israel ill. Now I want you to think about that. God sent flying serpents to make people sick. And I want to do a little syncretism on these flying serpents. Remember that the Nehushtan is a flying serpent. These flying serpents originate from ancient Egypt. Why is the God of the Bible sending a deity that originates from ancient Egypt to attack the children of Israel? Because God sent winged serpents, fiery serpents. And even if you look at Ma'at in this image, you can see the serpents, the wings, the fire, the whole symbolism. Talk about winged serpents. If we look at the Hermes caduceus, the medical staff, we see the winged serpents. Here are the winged serpents in ancient Egypt, which this deity was called the Wajet. And Jesus was a winged serpent. Was he, Sanchez? Yes, he was. Because the original symbol for Jesus was a serpent on the cross, and this serpent was always able to rise up. Remember when we say Kundalini rising, that's saying that the serpent energy within us rising above the body, rising to the throne of God, getting your mind out the gutter, the serpent rising up, the serpent energy rising up, the chi force rising up, or the Kundalini. This concept of the Kundalini rising up the spinal cord is the same concept of Jesus rising up to heaven from the cross. It represents Kundalini rising or Christ consciousness rising up in a person. That's why Moses said Christ's gonna be lifted up like the serpent, because Christ is personifying the Kundalini energy or Christ consciousness. And that must be raised up in humanity in order for us to activate who and what we really are, our greatest version. That's why the serpent got wings, because the Kundalini is able to ascend to the heavens. Other forms of the winged serpent we see here in China and in Hindu culture. Another form of the winged serpent right here with the god Anu. As you can look at his feet right here, this is serpent legs. He's a serpent deity or a Nagini. And he's half man, half snake. And he also got wings, so he's just like Christ. He's a seraphim, as they call it. These creatures were called seraphim. And again, the word seraphim dealing with seraphim or serpent. These winged creatures, these winged serpent creatures. Again, the god Anu right here being one of them. And there are just so many cultures around the world that had a concept of the winged serpent. Even if you think about the Mayans and the Olmecs with Mesoamerican culture, they had a winged serpent or a feathered serpent. Quetzalcoatl was a feathered serpent deity, half man, half serpent with the feathers, as you can see here. And in the Mayan culture again, Kukulkan, which is the feathered serpent or the winged serpent with the wings around him. And this winged serpent with the feathers around his head is just another form of Christ with the crown of thorns on, the Statue of Liberty, and all that. So we making the synchronicities here and seeing how it all line up. And as you can see, just like Enoch, the god Anu busting out through the sky vault, symbolizing one's soul ascension beyond the veil, out of the simulation. And that was symbolic of a winged serpent. And not just a winged serpent, but a brazen winged serpent, a brass one, which is why the Mayan used the light of the sun to help create this serpent called Kukulkan on the step pyramid. That's their way of calling it a yellow serpent or a golden serpent. They're using the light of the sun to create him, because this was the golden dragon in a lot of cultures, as you can see here in Asia and even on the Uraeus here in ancient Egypt. It is a brazen or golden serpent. And if you look at the entire headdress that the pharaoh is wearing here, the way it lays down on the sides and come out like a hoodie, that is the wings of the serpent. So you may see the serpent on a Uraeus. That's just one aspect. That serpent is attached to the headdress, and that entire headdress is the wings of the serpent. So this is a winged serpent that the pharaoh is wearing. And this entire headdress of the winged serpent is symbolizing the soul being transported from the body, which is why the Neuralink technology has the symbol of the serpent on it, because this same serpent is what we're calling the Ouroboros as well. The reason this Ouroboros serpent is chasing its tail is because if a soul is one of these green streaks of light, as it exits the earth through the sky vault, it's like water getting sucked down a drain. Think of spaghettification. The streak of green light start to go in circles as it get warped out, just like the lines on the barber pole or spiral staircase. This is the path of ascension. We don't just go up. We go around and round and round and round in a spiral as we go up. So these streaks of light is the brew that the witch is stirring up on the other side. Think of a witch above the earth stirring up this ether with a stick, this green brew pot. The aurora borealis, those are souls. So whenever you look in the witch brew pot and you see like you looking into a whole reality, that's because the brew pot is the earth realm. She keep it stirring it up to keep a portal open in between the earth realm and the base reality. And that's what the sky vault is. It's the open portal that the witch is keeping open by stirring. Think of a vortex. So even if you look at this Mesoamerican cosmology, the guys that are at the North Pole keeping the portal open, they got on witch hats. or Magi hats or Santa Claus hats at the North Pole. And their job is to keep the portal open. That's the covenant. Every world got to keep their portal open so that souls can be free to travel in and out of the simulation. So these are the witches keeping this thing stirred up so that the portal can stay open. And this knowledge of how the ether work and the knowledge of the sky vault, what I'm teaching you, is what was hidden behind spookism about witches stirring up brew pots. We used to teach this in symbolism so that children can understand it. But when we lost the advanced knowledge behind this stuff, it is now just pointless folklore and traditions like Halloween and Christmas that ain't got no meaning other than to keep you spending money with the corporations every year. It lost the real advanced meanings that will heal the earth and elevate the mind of humanity because we caught up in all this spookism and stuff. And fear keeps us from ascending. And the people in power got to keep feeding us fear in every aspect of our lives because this is what keep these vampires powerful. In all of the scary movies, when the children ain't scared no more, that's when they start to kick ass and defeat Satan or the boogeyman. They're ruling us through fear. Once we're not scared anymore, we will begin to act in bravery and realize how much power we really got. They're convinced us that we just flesh and bone mortals when we are the gods, and we don't even know it because they got us on our knees praying to false gods. And these false gods ain't doing that but hiding the true knowledge of what we are while we giving them all the glory. We just giving away all our power to these vampires, and it's making us weaker and weaker and weaker. Every generation is like a bottomless pit. So it's really truly time to wake up. But like I was saying, because we was talking about the winged serpents, the brazen winged serpents, you can find these in a lot of cultures. Aztec culture with Quetzalcoatl, the Mayan culture with Kukulkan. The Olmec is one of the oldest Mesoamerican civilizations. The Olmecs worship serpent imagery, possibly an early form of the feathered serpent later seen in Maya and Aztec cultures. Of course it is. Even in Toltec culture, which predated the Aztecs, also they revered Quetzalcoatl, which was an early form of Christ or this same, deity of the crossroads. And to me, what this represents is the fact that when our soul leaves the body, it will be a split being, just like this deity. You will become a demiurge, which you are now, because you got these two forces going to war inside of yourself, your higher self and lower self. So that's the war of good and evil, Armageddon, happening within and without. But when a person die and their soul leave the body, you're going to get to decide on how you want to continue your journey as a spiritual being. Do you want to ascend upward and take responsibility as a God and move forward up this stairway? Or do you want to keep playing this earth role as this version of yourself? It's what you want to be. See, when a person die, their next version of who they can be is born up out the version that just died. But that's only half of who their spirit is. The other half is the person who they just was in this world. So when we die, we look like a two-faced deity like Janus. That's what the crossroads is. When you're standing at the North Pole, it's gonna split your being in half. That's why they call this deity the Ripper. He's gonna put a split down. Part of you, half of you is gonna be just say the left side is gonna be the you that you just was in the earth realm. And the right side is gonna be the new you that you can be if you move on to a higher realm and keep transforming to something better. And you're gonna have to decide which one of these you wanna be. And that's the war between God and the devil, the high self and low self. Because some people are so in love with who they are in this earth realm that they don't want to move forward yet. They're not ready to transform. So that's what this God is allowing them to do. The same thing Morpheus allowed Neo to do, to have the option It's some people that's so in love with who they became in this earth realm, they're not tired yet of being who they are in this earth realm. So the universe will give them the option to reincarnate again and keep being who they are over and over and reincarnate back here. And you may say, man, that's messed up. For you it is, but for them, that's what they want to do. That's their heaven. And Morpheus gives all of us that option. You want to take the blue pill and stay who you always been and just maintain status quo? Or if you take the red pill, now you're going to have to move up, get a responsibility with this knowledge that I'm about to give you, and you're going to have to transform now. And everybody ain't ready to transform. That's what this thing is, that when your soul get out the body, half of you is going to be the new you. The universe going to show you what you can be if you ascend and keep mastering yourself. But some people gonna say, yeah, that's good and all, but I like this version of me on the earth. You know why? Because I'm a multi-platinum rapper. I'm a millionaire in the earth realm. And it's gonna be a lot of people who got more attachments to the earth and who they are in the earth realm. They're gonna have to play this game a couple more times to purge that out of them and get tired of it to where they say, okay, I'm tired of it now, let's move on. That's why they call this thing purgatory. The universe ain't gonna let you leave till you get tired of playing the game. In fact, you ain't gonna let yourself leave till you get tired of it. The universe is just giving you what you desire, just like Morpheus was doing Neo once again. So whichever side you decide to be, that determines the destination of your soul's next reincarnation. That's what this crossroads God is offering us. Red pill or blue pill. When a soul is ejected from the body, it sees the other side. It is exposed to the real world, just like Morpheus exposed Neo to the real world. And if that soul ain't mature enough to handle what's on the other side, if it ain't ready to transform and take on a responsibility to what it is in this greater realm, then the universe ain't gonna force it. Everyone get to make this choice themselves. It's all consent based, just like with Morpheus and Neo. So another form of this bronze winged serpent, again, is Apep or Apophis, the Wajet in Egypt, like I said. Also in Sumerian and Akkadian civilizations, they had a brazen winged serpent called Ningizida, and Tiamat was the name of it in Babylonian mythology. In Persian culture, it was called Azidahaka. And in Greco-Roman cultures, of course, we already went over that. It was the Caduceus. And also a python was associated with the Oracle of Delphi. In Chinese civilization, you know, we already went over that. They always got the golden dragons, the winged serpents, which are just dragons. That's all a dragon is. It's a winged serpent. In Nordic mythology, you can see the serpent wrapped around their tree of life here. This is called Yggdrasil. This is the Nordic conception of the universe. And we see the serpent in this concept as well, that brazen serpent. And the name of this other serpent in Nordic mythology was Jormungandr. And they had another one named Niohagar. I know I'm butchering those, but in Hittite civilization, it was called Iluyanka. And in native North American cultures, it was Avanu, and there was a horned serpent in various tribes. You will see the feathered serpent, the horned serpent, all of it is the same deity. In Indus Valley civilization, the Nagas were winged serpents. Even in Etruscan civilization, they had serpentine creatures called Perseus. Even in the modern Vatican, you can see the influence of these serpent deities because they got this hideous serpent form of Jesus Christ that everybody keep bringing up. And every time they bring up this serpent form of Jesus Christ, people try to use it to prove aliens, to prove witchcraft, sorcery, and all of the other spookism that I've been telling you about, which is the reason why I did this presentation. Because every time we see this stuff, we go right to spookism and mysticism. But what we're not being taught is that this is the original spiritual system that gave birth to Christianity. So this image of Christ as a serpent deity goes back to the Nehushtan, goes back to the fact that the original form of Christ was Satan. That was the first son of God that sat at the right hand that was casted down. That was the first coming of the Christ. And basically what that is saying is that Christ got to come to the earth 7 times. The Hindus said we got to reincarnate here 7 times to master ourselves. And the Hindu said that our first incarnation, we're going to be our worst version. So when Christ came to the earth the first time, he was literally Satan being casted down. And that was Jesus' first incarnation. And our first incarnation, we're always our worst version. And so second coming, third coming, fourth coming, these are the steps of godhood. Christ went through them too. These 7 steps are the 7 Hermetic principles, the 7 mastering of the 7 deadly sins. Doing this is how one master themselves and escape the rebirth cycles. So these serpent images of Christ goes back to Kabbalism, goes back to this original system of the Magi that I was telling y'all about. And even in this image of Christ here, you can see the goat or the cow image with Christ busting up out that beast up out the world. Because a symbol to symbolize the earth realm was the goat god Moloch, symbolizing the earth as a furnace that's shaped like a golden bull, which that is another way to personify a quantum computer to symbolize this life simulation. So we see this serpent version of Christ. And again, why is Christ a serpent version? Because he is a Nagini. All of our ancestors symbolize the ascension of the soul as a kundalini or a green serpent. Because your soul is symbolized as a green streak of light or a Nagini or a kundalini, then they have half man, half serpent or a winged serpent to symbolize the beauty of a soul passing on. But the people in power demonized it so you can be scared of it and you won't know the secrets of life and death. So when you see Jesus busting up out this goat, that is why these green creatures are called Naginis, because they are no different than the genie that busts up out the brass lamp. Why do genies bust out of brass lamps? Because the genie represent the soul ascending up out the earth realm, which is symbolic of the brazen bull or the brazen serpent. And in the case of the genie, they turned it into a brass lamp. And the genie busts out of it. But that's the same story of Christ leaving the world. And here it is at the Vatican in the form of Christ busting out of the beast. And you can compare this to Neo busting up out his matrix pod and all of the other examples that I have on the collage before you. So this holographic projection technology, what's coming back to the earth, is what allowed these Magi to be in different places at one time or to achieve omniscient abilities, to be in multiple places at once. As you can see in this collage, this dude is projecting himself way across the world with a holographic projection machine. He's at his house on one part of the world, projecting himself in another part of the world, and he's able to attend a conference without taking a flight. And this is what the future is gonna look like. But this is technology that the Magi was using in the past. And that's why they was able to be in many places at once, because our ancient ancestors were so advanced. They were the creators of this holographic projection technology that is resurfacing on the earth today. We're just reverse engineering. So all of the miracles and concepts associated with these folklores and traditions, I'm breaking it down to you right now and showing you how it is modern technology coming back to the earth from the past. We're going back to the future, backwards, right? Because everything we're doing already been done before. So again, Jack popping out the box, the Nagini coming out the lamp, the god Anu busting up out the sky right here, Enoch busting up out the sky. All of this is the same thing. The Statue of Liberty represent this. That's why it's called Liberty, because you're getting liberated. When Neo liberates himself from the Matrix and detaches himself from the earth realm, he pops up out the other side like Jesus right here. Think of the whale that spit Jonah out. a lot of these deities with the upper body of a human and the bottom part of a serpent, they are no different than Jonah being spit out the whale, which is the world. The whale is the world. And when you have so many folklore of this same concept, it just start to mutate to different forms of the same story, to where you got some people leaving the mouth of a reptile or a fish creature or a dragon. They busting up out the mouth of a beast or a serpent. And over time, some people were just variated to where they will fuse the person with the serpent. Because remember what the serpent represent, the kundalini. When you see them taking that person's face and all of that and attaching it to a serpent body, it's to deify them. It's to put them in a God body. No different than today when a loved one die, we put angel wings on them to symbolize that this person has passed away. The ascension up this mountain is a transformative process that when we get to the top of this mountain, we will receive immortality and we will receive a God body that never gets sick. We will receive the ultimate form of healing, immortality, youth, the Holy Grail, tree of life. So when you think about this pyramid, this tower, or this stairway to heaven, it is a hill. And as we climb the hill, we are healed. We are healed. There's a reason we call it healing, and that a person is healed, because the ultimate state that a human can be in, or the most healed state that we can be in, is in our ultimate God body state, which is when we manifest as our greatest version outside the simulation and we're on top of the hill. When we are healed, or when we have capped this pyramid. Saying you have been healed is saying you have been peaked. Like in a video game when you got an energy bar and it's in the red and you get healed and you take it all the way up 100% to the green, you've maxed it out. It's healed, it's peaked, it's climaxed, so to speak. And at this ultimate climax, healed state, this ultimate state of health, you locked in. I remember a cheat code in the fighting game where they'll keep hitting you, but you didn't lose no energy. And they will lock your energy bar with the Ouroboros symbol to show immortality, which is given by the serpent body. This is the part of you that can't die and that it doesn't get sick and all of that. Earlier, I was making the parallels between Akhenaten and Atenism and Moses. And I was saying how Moses would have learned from Akhenaten. The cult of Aten would have been the Egyptian knowledge that Moses would have learned from the Egyptians, because he started to bring that cult into the Western world. But I'm not the only one to make that claim. Because of the monotheistic character of Atenism, a link to Judaism has been suggested by various writers. For example, psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud assumed Akhenaten to be the pioneer of monotheistic religion and Moses as Akhenaten's follower in his book Moses and Monotheism. The modern Druze people regard their religion as being descended from and influenced by older monotheistic and mystic movements, including Atenism. In particular, they attribute the Tawhid's first public declaration to Akhenaten. So again, the Egyptians influenced most of the world, and the particular pharaoh whose cult was the most prominent, he was also kind of like the most controversial, and that was Akhenaten. So earlier, I was talking about Taurus, and I was giving my theory on how I think this hideous creature manifested based upon them transitioning in between Hathor and the serpent deity and fusing the two into this cow serpent with wings. I wanted to give you the brief mythology of Taurus. The Taurus is said to be a creature with the front half of a bull and the back half of a serpent. The only known writing featuring the Taurus is Fasti by Ovid. Here, Ovid describes the types of monstra that are threats to both men and gods. Ovid contrasts the Taurus with the Emania monstra, the terrifying monsters. The poem describes a prophecy telling that whoever burns the Ophiatoris will defeat the gods. It depicts Briareus, one of the 100-handed Hecatoncheires, killing the Ophiatoris in an attempt to burn its innards, only to be stopped by birds sent by Zeus. So every time someone is trying to slay this deity, just like in the other case where we saw Zeus intervene because Zeus believed that men would become immortal, we see Zeus stopping the slaying of this beast in this mythology as well. And the whole concept about whoever can burn the innards of this beast will be freed or will be given the gift of the gods is dealing with the concept that we are all in the belly of the beast. And when you raise your vibration and raise your kundalini, the beast will spit you out and give you liberation. It can't hold you no more because you're like a stomach ache. That's why Jonah had to get out the whale, because the whale couldn't take it. Jonah was in there praying, and praying is going within, meditating, raising your vibration, getting to know thyself, mastering yourself. And the word kundalini is another way of saying candle. So once you raise your vibration to a high enough point, you become a shining star or a bright light or a burning candle flame in this world. And when that happens, this thing gotta spit you out because you're uncomfortable in its belly. So that's why the mythology says that whoever can burn the innards of this beast will receive a gift of the gods, just like Jonah did. Jonah is the word genie, and he's being released from the lamp when he's being released from the whale. And the only way you can do that is to raise your vibration, and this thing will spit you out, giving you the gift of the gods, which is liberation. So the word Magi originally is the term used for priests in Zoroastrianism and earlier Iranian religions. The earliest known use of the word Magi is in a trilingual inscription written by Darius the Great, known as the Nehushtan inscription. Old Persian texts predating the Hellenistic period refer to a magus as a Zervanic and presumably a Zoroastrian priest. Pervasive throughout the Eastern Mediterranean and Western Asia until late antiquity and beyond, magos was influenced by the Greek word goes, the older word for a practitioner of magic, with a meaning expanded to include astronomy, astrology, alchemy, and other forms of esoteric knowledge. So that is crazy, people, that back during this time, an astronomer, astrologer, a person dealing with alchemy would have been given the title Magi or magician. Just to show you what I mean about how the people had been dumbed down, that simple basic concepts would have been considered magic, witchcraft, sorcery. In the Gospel of Matthew, the word Magi was used. From the east, do homage to the Christ child. And this was referred to the three wise men who visited Jesus. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, the title of wise man. This would have been a medicine man who can heal you, a person that understood astrology. That would have been considered magic. So now we can take the spookism up out of it and see that basic things that we do today that we consider science and technology was what people was referring to as witchcraft and sorcery and all of this stuff and all of these ancient folklores and traditions and all of that. But they don't want us to know that because they lied to us by saying that the ancient people were not technologically advanced. They want us to think that we're doing something new under the sun. So later they transliterated the word Magi to the word Magi. This particular use is also commonly rendered in English as kings. So this is why Christ was considered a king. And this is why the pharaohs and the kings had scepters and they all had on these big bulky hats, because this allowed them to have these so-called supernatural powers. And basically, a technocracy established itself on the earth. All of these Magi, these new kings of the world, were ruling with fear and technology. They obviously had science and technology from the old world, and after this reset, when they dumb the world down, people didn't understand this technology and science. And they was telling these people that they were men of God. They had God powers that was given by God. And people were freaking out. It was a time on earth where if you had any kind of advanced knowledge, you would have been seen as a god, a magician, a witch. This new tech brotherhood established itself as a new world power. And in my theory, which is a wild theory, I believe that these original dynasties that ushered in this new way of living on the earth, this new technological way of living, I believe that they were advanced humanoids, like I was saying earlier. So this the same script that we get from the Matrix movie. So a synonym for the word king was a wise man during this time too. The singular word magus appears considerably later when it was borrowed from the Old French in the late 14th century with the meaning magician. Hereditary Zoroastrian priesthood has survived in India and Iran. They are termed Herbad, Mobad, and Daster depending on the rank. And the Magupot is the chief of the Maga in these cultures. So these Magi had established orders and systems all around the world, and that order is what we under today, this so-called New World Order. It's the newest way of thinking. It just established itself on earth a few thousand years ago in Egypt and Babylon. It is so new when you think about the old order under the law. And the law in the old day was do unto others as you have them do unto you. Again, that you have to be a good person to ascend. And now this new order, through faith, the world is in chaos. And the way that they go about dealing with the chaos is throwing technology at it. When the ancient world, which was a utopia, that was achieved through self-mastery and really just creating good human beings. When you don't want to create good human beings and you think you can throw technology at everything, then you'll live in a world with good technology and bad people. And that's when the bad people will use this awesome technology for all the wrong reasons. And it won't batter us, it'll just lead us to hell quicker, which is the plan from the get-go. There's no way to cheat this old world system and the law. And they're leading everybody to hell under this new faith forgiveness system, because a person don't have to hold themselves accountable, and people can do some of the most evilest things and still fall under the protection of this demigod who is the protector of liars, thieves, and etc. And this is the God of the Bible who led his people to go and take land that wasn't theirs. This is the same deity who is a jealous God, a protector of thieves and liars, and etc. God is so powerful, but he won't destroy the devil. But God will turn people into pillars of salt. God will even play games with his most loyal servants like Job, just to prove something to his enemy. He would put his loyal saints through hell and turmoil. God will do a lot of evil things to people, but God will not just make the devil cease to exist. Even though God is all powerful and supposedly can do anything, he just won't destroy the devil. This the same energy that we read about, protector of liars, thieves. This the same government system we in. If your money right, you can be as evil as you want to be. Because the people who enforcing the law to us, they operate outside of it. So another thing I wanted to talk about was necromancy. Because one of the things that the Magi was famous for was necromancy. All of the Magi, one of the gifts that all Magi exercised was necromancy. And necromancy is the practice of magic involving communication with the dead. So this is why all of the prophets in the Bible was able to communicate with the prophets of old and new. They was able to ascend to heaven. They was basically able to communicate with the dead, is what the Magi was able to do. Now, again, we don't want to perpetuate the spookism and mysticism, because we already broke down the technology that's going to allow people to communicate with the dead. In the near future, the lines between the dead and the living will be blurred. We will have the same technology in the near future to communicate with our dead loved ones, because in the near future, when a person is about to die, they can drill into that person's brain and intercept their soul. They can literally transport the person's consciousness into another body, and a person can still live on and communicate with their dead loved ones. They will be able to transport people's consciousness into computers and different outside external sources. And this was the whole concept about genies inside of lamps and all of that good stuff. This is the same technology of ancient Egypt and Babylon coming back to the earth. And the people who are going to bring that technology to us are the Magi of the ancient day, returning back to the earth to harvest these people's souls with this technology. This was the technology that allowed this ancient priesthood to cheat death. This is an ancient witch coven. And all world religions warn about this ancient spirit that was on the earth called the Shaitan, which referring to a hive mind of ancient quote unquote witches. But we want to take the spookism away from it. These are ancient tech gurus exercising very advanced technology on people today who think that it's futuristic technology. But it's ancient technology coming back to the earth straight out of Babylon and Egypt. So these Magi was able to communicate with the dead using this same technology that's allowing the soul to be transported. And in this image, you can see that. You can see this Magi right here with this sort of head technology on that's similar to the Statue of Liberty spikes, Medusa, and all of that. And this is another way of them showing us this Neuralink technology that have always been coming and leaving on the earth, opening up a gateway between the dead and the living. So back in these times, a few men had this technology and people looked at them like witches because they was like, how are you able to talk to my dead loved one? How are you able to take the spirit from her body? And there's a practice called body swapping. You know, even in the Bible, when you read the story of how Jesus drove the evil spirits into the pigs. So this whole thing about transporting consciousness was a very common practice that we see. And this would have been one of the gifts of the Magi based upon this technology. So this was the practice of magic involving communication with the dead by summoning their spirits as apparitions or visions. Now this goes into the holographic projection technology. Whenever you see this word apparition or vision, in some cultures they call it the Holy Ghost. And the word holy is just another word for holo, which is the root word of hologram or hologram. So the technology that we got in the future, a person will be able to project themselves via a holographic avatar of themselves anywhere in the world. So I can do a speech in China right now from my living room because I can project a holographic light body of myself to China. So I can attend a meeting in China without leaving my house by sending my ghosts. So whenever they talk about this Holy Ghost that Jesus had, that allowed him to be omniscient, all these places at once. This was the same technology in the past that we bringing back today. There's nothing new under the sun. There were no miracles. There were no magic. Technology has always came and left on the earth through wise men. And back in the day, they called them witches and sorcerers and magi. But this would have been just ancient tech gurus during a time when people didn't know about this stuff like that. So if you would have used it around them, they probably would have worshipped you or feared you, you know. This was a few men on earth that was saying, we're not going to teach this knowledge to everybody else. We're going to maintain this knowledge as a secret to make ourselves powerful like gods on the earth. And people ain't going to know that we just got some technology they don't know about they gonna think we are men of God with powers that come from heaven and all of this stuff, when they was just men that was ahead of their time. And instead of them telling people, hey, this is a technological tool, this is science, they was using it to make themselves gods and all of this stuff, to be worshiped and rise to power over people. And they're doing the same thing today. So they was able to communicate with the dead by summoning their spirit as an apparition or a vision. And that's what we're gonna be able to do in the near future. Because what'll happen is you can upload a person's soul into a black cube or computer. You can upload their soul even into a humanoid skin in the near future. And you can upload their soul into a holographic avatar as well. So when a person dies, they can make a holographic projection of the person, like they doing with Michael Jackson and I think Whitney Houston and these celebrities that die. And they can put the soul of the person into the holographic projection. And when the person died, they didn't go nowhere. You can be talking to your dead loved one that just flatlined in the hospital a minute ago, and they will be able to literally attend their own funeral via a holographic projection. They'll be standing over their own body at their own funeral with the family. Imagine that kind of a world where the lines between the dead and the living will be blurred. And when you read the book of Revelation, that's what they're telling you, that in the end of days, the dead will walk the earth with the living. The dead will be raised. And this is the technology that's going to do it. So this is what we read in necromancy. They say that it's a practice of magic. You will hear words like magic and all of that, but it's really ancient technology that keeps coming and leaving the earth, and it's opening up this portal between the dead and the living. So they summon these people's spirits. And when we talk summoning a spirit, the word summon is like a siphoning process that's dealing with extraction. That's what Neuralink is going to eventually offer, the extraction of consciousness. So that's what the summoning is. They're trying to make it into like witchcraft, sorcery, but it's ancient technology. And when they extract the soul with the BCI, they can now put it in the holographic projection, just as I said. So it was said that they would do this for the purpose of divination, which was the attempt to gain insight into a question or situation by way of an occultic ritual or practice. So in other words, what we would do with this technology, when a person died and we summon their spirit via a holographic projection, we will ask them questions like, what is it like to be dead? How does it feel on the other side? And now we started learning about the astral plane. So this is what divination is, because the most important knowledge that you would gain from a dead person is the knowledge of the hereafter. But just think about that, the hereafter, meaning you don't go nowhere, you stay here after you die. They would summon these people for divination purposes, imparting the means to foretell future events and discover hidden knowledge that would otherwise be hidden from humanity. Like, hey, I wonder what happens when you die. The technology we got now, this is the technology that will answer all of those questions and solve all of those great mysteries for humanity. So that's why they say this is the technology that allowed us to cheat death. Because without technology in a natural system or a natural setting, you will have to just wait till you die to see what's on the other side. But with this technology, we can cheat, because that is a rule associated with death, that you can't see the other side until it's your time. But with this technology, you can cheat death, cheat that rule. We can peek and come back and forth from the other side with this technology that opens this portal. And this is why Jesus was able to speak to the living, even though he died. His ghost, his apparition, was able to still speak to them after death. When they talk about piercing Jesus in all of his sides, if you look at the holographic projection, these are the rays coming up around the waistline to project this apparition. This is dealing with holographic projection. So it's nothing spooky, nothing miraculous, just very advanced spiritual technology. So Again, they use this technology to uncover hidden knowledge about the other side. Sometimes they categorize the practice of necromancy. Some people call this death magic. The term is occasionally also used in a more general sense to refer to black magic or witchcraft as a whole. So the classical Greek term was Nikaia, from the episode of the Odyssey in which Odysseus visits the realm of the dead souls, and in Hellenistic Greek necromantia, and in Latin necromancy in 17th century English. And if you ever look at images of Odysseus, you can see he's just like all the others with the rod and scepter, and in some images, the shaman hat or the Neuralink hat. This shaman hat that we see everywhere that allowed the shamans to go on a trip and see the other side, you notice that this shaman hat looked just like this Neuralink hat. And this is the Santa hat, also the hat that we see Odysseus wearing. This is why Hermes have wings on his helmet. And this is also when we look at the pharaoh's headdress, the stripes or the lines that we see going to the back and climaxing into one big braid is the Neuralink technology. I want to take the spookism out of all of the stuff that the Egyptians was doing when they was cheating death, when they was summoning the dead, when they was traveling the astral plane. They wasn't using magic. It was no miracles. All of these ancient Magi were using advanced technology that is coming back to the earth at this time. So what we're looking at now is the Zoroastrian eternal flame at the fire temple in Yazd in central Iran. And this is their equivalency of the Liberty Torch, based on the same concepts of the Statue of Liberty. Basically the same concepts of the Holy Grail, right? The Grail cup, the Statue of Liberty, is dealing with this Jedi pillar, this scepter. So now I want to talk about what I was telling y'all earlier about how a lot of this knowledge was removed from the earth via witch hunts that the church had went on when it got rid of this stuff and transformed to the modern Abrahamic faiths and done away with the law. So this is about the slaughter of the Magi and how ancient Persia made genocide an annual holiday. One of the worst massacres was a story that is rarely told today. It happened in ancient Persia more than 2,500 years ago. In 522 BC, the Magi, an immigrant group living in Persia, was almost completely wiped out. The Persians they had thought of as their countrymen ran through the streets massacring every single Magi they could find. And they didn't stop there. For years to follow, they made the slaughter of the Magi an annual holiday. So the Magi was in Persia for 27 years, but in 549 BC, their homeland was conquered by the Persian king Cyrus the Great. And remember that they compared Trump to Cyrus the Great. I just gave you basic, simple facts for you to go ahead if you wanted to know more about the slaughter of the Magi. This is what a witch hunt would have been. In Zoroastrianism, they have their own form of the Holy Grail. Now, the Grail was said to have many magical powers, but again, these words, magical powers, because they don't want you to know that this is an ancient technological device. Let's break down the powers. It had the power to heal. The Grail is said to have the power to heal all wounds. Now, they are saying that in the future, when we are able to export consciousness out of the body and we have human skins and holographic projections, that these glorified bodies, as the Bible call it, won't get sick, they won't age, they won't have any wounds on them. So if your body got a bunch of wounds, you on your deathbed, again, they can extract the consciousness out of your body, upload you into a holographic version of yourself, a projection, and that is literally the power to heal all wounds. There would be no wound on the earth that can't be healed with this technology. Basically, once we got the technology to take the consciousness out the body, the consciousness is the part of us that never die. So regardless if our body reach a point where it's in an irreparable state, then we can just swap bodies, which is what this technology allows a person to do. And with that kind of ability, you can cheat death, because death is just a result of your body breaking down and something going wrong. Every time that happens, you can just swap bodies. But even better yet, you can just create holographic bodies that can't break, that are indestructible, and cheat death altogether, making man immortal, which is another one of the magical powers that the Holy Grail give people. It gives them immortality. If you were a holographic projection, you would never age, which is why another gift of the Holy Grail is eternal youth. When they went on these witch hunts, they went on a witch hunt to kill Jesus, the witch hunts led Moses out of Egypt, and it eventually all of the members of the cult of Aten and killed that religion down. And this stuff is only surfacing back up on the earth when it's in the hands of the wrong people. But a lot of the crime that would have got you killed was heresy. And heresy was any belief or opinion contrary to orthodox religious doctrine, especially Christian. So if you had an opinion that was profoundly at odds with what is generally accepted during the time, it got you put to death. And what the church was teaching, that when you die, you go to heaven or hell. And then you got a group of people saying, well, I can give you the knowledge to cheat death and to be like God. Because the church fathers, they were immortal souls using the technology that they were condemning because they wanted to be the only ones with it. They were teaching people, if you die, you go to heaven or hell. Meanwhile, they didn't believe that themselves because they had cheated death. All of these people that was coming along saying, I can make you like God, they was basically saying, I can give you the perks that the men of God got, the priests got, because the priests were the Magi, your pastors, your bishops. They were doing miracles and all of that because what made them a priest was the fact that they had this technology that the Magi had. And so you had some of these priests telling people, I can make you like the Magi, like God. I can make you basically like a magician telling you, you want to become a magician? I can show you the tricks of how we do this stuff. You can become one of us. That would have got you killed, and how they would have convinced the people to kill you, because if you go and tell a person, I can teach you some powers and magic that'll make you talk to the dead, that'll make you live forever, they would say, hey y'all, this a witch. This person is speaking heresy. This person is saying something against what my priest told me. And the priest will know that that person is telling the truth, but everybody kill that person. And that's how they kept this knowledge hidden from the people, how they dumbed them down. Because the people themselves was programmed in a way where if you did try to come to them and give them the knowledge of the gods and make them like God, you would have been faced with the same result as Jesus. They would have helped turn you over to the authorities for heresy. Their eyes would have got so big the moment you told them, I can show you how to see the future. And you tell a person, hey, you ever had deja vu before? I can help you with that gift and help you see the future. That person will get you killed. Because even though that person may have experienced deja vu and all that stuff, they saying that is of the devil. This is the tricks of the devil messing with their mind. Like people today would tell you opening up your third eye is satanic. You shouldn't do it. And all that is enhancing these gifts of deja vu, lucid dreaming, these visions we having. So people demonize this stuff, even though these are the gifts of the gods that are in us, and we can access them without technology at all. But there are another group of people on the earth, the only way they can enjoy the gifts of the gods is by simulating these abilities with technology. They do it in a synthetic way by becoming superhuman via transhumanism. But when they do that, they condemn themselves to the earth, just like the ancient Magi of the old did and the old coven of witches that are governing this simulation now. These are ancient ghosts in their own machine, and they trying to keep you here and initiate the whole world into their priesthood and bite you so that you become one of them. And that's why eventually most of the world is going to be some form of transhuman, where we merge with machine. This happened before on Earth, and it happens every reset. And this is what they are calling harvest time, because when this technology come back to the Earth, they now have access to the consciousness of man and for the soul of man. And that's what the devil wants. He wants your soul. I'm not trying to fearmonger or anything with this. I'm trying to take the spookism away, because fearmongering would be me teaching you about witches and monsters and devils. I'm teaching you about ancient, advanced technological beings that are among us.